So Jimmy Kimmel went on his show and said that we're all a gaggle of scumbags. He called the president, the alleged president, incoming president, and then said his gaggle of scumbags were criticizing the firefighters for not being white enough or whatever. The assumption is, of course, he's talking about personalities who are criticizing the DEI policies, which exacerbated the problems in the California wildfires. But thanks, Jimmy, for calling us scumbags, I guess. The reality is, well, I won't be so crass. But let me just put it this way. How much you think the Biden administration is going to give to the victims in the LA wildfires? I know you're thinking of a number, but you're wrong. It's not $700. It's $770. They increased it. So maybe I won't use the word scumbag, but I really want to when it comes to these issues. So thanks, Jimmy. We'll talk about that. And then, of course, we have Pete Hegseth in the news with these wild Senate confirmation hearings. And it's just, I'm watching these, just thinking to myself, it's all fake. Tim Kaine going after Hegseth, accusing him of cheating and other nonsense. Elizabeth Warren coming after him because he said women shouldn't be in combat. I'm like, none of these people are asking real questions that matter for someone who's going to be defending this nation. But there was this really funny moment where Senator Mullins called at the Democrats for not saying anything when other senators show up to vote drunk. Yet they got a problem with Hegseth. So a lot of funny stuff to talk about. Before we get started, my friends, head over to castbrew.com. Buy Cast Brew coffee. I could probably use a nice warm glass of decaf because I'm losing my voice. But what can I do about it? We still have 2 weeks till Christmas available where Phil is dressed like Santa Claus. You can get that one.
Get it.
And then, of course, we have Ian's Graphene Dream, which he somehow has sold 1,100 bags of this coffee in a week. The guy is crazy. I don't know. But I want to get this on the front page. We haven't yet. Focus with Mr. Bokus. That's right. He's Mr. Bokus. He is there. And this is our espresso roast. Check it out. But also become a member at timcast.com. Click join us because the members only show will be epic tonight. As a member, you get access to our Discord server. You can hang out with like-minded individuals. It's a lot of fun. And it makes the show possible. If you like the show, if you like the people on the show, if you think we do a good job, we need you to become members because that's principally how we fund everything. You will get access to the Discord server, which is like a chat room, and you get to call in to our members only show and talk to us and our guests. So smash that like button. Share the show with everyone you know. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Daniel Negreanu.
Welcome. Yeah. Hey, what's up?
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. Who are you? What do you do?
I'm a professional poker player, and my name's Daniel Negreanu. For those that don't know, my wife and I, we do our own little fun podcast called the Mania Podcast, where we shoot the shit. Today we had, oops.
Nah, you're fine.
Yeah. We had a guest on today, which was kind of fun. A guy who created sort of has a theory that maybe OJ didn't do it, which I thought was fun to explore. Some stuff that he brought up some stuff that, I went in saying this is ridiculous, but by the time I was done with it, like you do with many podcasts, I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. Up in the air.
So now, Daniel won't say it, but depending on who you ask, he is the best poker player. He's not just a professional poker player. He's the best. Fair to say simply one of the best?
One of is fair, yeah. It's so hard in a game like that, because there is luck. As you know, you play a little bit of poker. It's hard to know who the best is. And there's a lot of young guys today who work a lot harder than I do and are a lot hungrier. So I wouldn't say I'm the best, but I'm among them.
I would, because what I love about poker is when you figure people out. And for those that don't know, Daniel's famous for all of these videos and throughout your career, just nailing people on what the cards reading their mind, basically, knowing the person better than they know themselves. And then it's funny when they get frustrated and give up. Not even in a position where they need to, but you've nailed them so well that they just give up on it. And that's my favorite part of the game. So I'm a big fan. It's glad to have you. Should be a lot of fun. We got Raymond hanging out.
What's up, guys? My name is Raymond G. Stanley Jr., American Marine veteran. I have a baseline with a lick of laughter. During the pre-show, before we started this, it was a great conversation with Mr. Daniel, so I'm looking forward to talking about everything on the news today. It's going to be exciting. Mr. Phil.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and a counter-revolutionary, and let's go.
Here's a story from Mediaite to kick things off. Jimmy Kimmel breaks down over the fires and bitterly condemns Trump and his, quote, gaggle of scumbags, saying firefighters aren't white enough. Well, as everybody who watches this show knows, we've never criticized firefighters for not being white enough. We've criticized them for not hiring enough firefighters because they don't want white ones, which is totally different. And I assume the gaggle of scumbags comment has to be the supporters of Donald Trump, prominent personalities who have been criticizing DEI policies. But Let me play the clip for you. And I'll start by saying I can give Jimmy respect. I'm not going to rag on him for crying over the fires. I mean, maybe an adult man shouldn't be crying like this, fine, but it is terrifying and people are losing their lives. So I can respect anybody who's emotional about this. Here's a clip.
As you know, it has been a very scary, very stressful, very strange week here in LA, where we work, where we live, where our kids go to school. We are back in our studio, which we had to evacuate on Wednesday. That's our building right there, the El Capitan. That is how close this fire was to our theater here. Many of us had to leave our homes in a hurry. Some of our coworkers lost their homes. That's Hollywood. It's been terrible. It's been a terrible. Everyone who lives in this city knows someone, most of us, multiple people, families, friends, colleagues, neighbors whose houses burned down. And the truth is, we don't even know if it's over. We had 100-mile-per-hour winds fueling this nightmare. As of tonight, the winds are back. And I think I speak for all of us when I say it has been a sickening, shocking, awful experience, but has also been, in a lot of ways, a beautiful experience because once again, we see our fellow men and women coming together to support each other. People who lost their own homes were out volunteering in parking lots, helping others who lost theirs. And tonight, I don't want to get into all the vile and irresponsible and stupid things our alleged future president and his gaggle of scumbags chose to say during our darkest and most terrifying hour. The fact that they chose to attack our firefighters, who apparently aren't white enough to be out there risking their lives on our behalf, it's disgusting, but it's not surprising. Instead, I want to focus on thanking those men and women. Because that's all we should be doing right now.
We got to do it. We got to call out the lies on the corporate press.
Yes.
Okay. First of all, let me say, who's his gaggle of scumbags? He's not talking about his administration because none of these people are doing press right now. He's talking about the supporters, the prominent people in media, people like us, who have rightly criticized that the LA Fire Department is understaffed. They've been complaining for years about having too many white people. Adam Carolla pointed out that as a white man, he was held back for 7 years, and these policies have made it more difficult to fight these fires. Now, there is other news. A new fire erupted called the Auto Fire. The winds are picking up. It's going to get bad. So when I see this video and they're all laughing and cheering and clapping at lies, this has been the problem the whole time with the corporate press, the mainstream narrative. How do we solve the problem of these massive wildfires if the people who live in these areas don't actually know what we're saying, what the problem is?
I don't know that there is a solution on the horizon for these wildfires because the people in positions of authority are just passing the buck. People like Jimmy Kimmel are blaming, their political opponents or people that they dislike their politics for the being the problem. So I don't see a solution. I don't see how anything gets fixed. The government of California has been a single party government for at least 3 decades, probably longer. I don't know when the last time they had a genuine conservative or a person of a different political opinion, and that just leads to all kinds of terrible results for the population, regardless of which side it is, right? So if hypothetically, if it was all Republicans in one state all the time for 3 decades, you would get the same kind of falling in line and everyone just going through the same motions all the time, because that kind of ideological uniformity does nothing but breed corruption. We're getting it out of Washington right now. 4% or 5% of DC voted for Donald Trump as opposed to Kamala Harris. It's a terrible thing when you have uniformity of political opinion because you have people that are terrified to step out of line and say, no, this is a bad policy.
Yeah, I'd play devil's advocate just a little bit on this with the one issue here, because for me, it's like about the timing a little bit, right? The insensitivity of what happened, right? So there has to be a moratorium to some degree of like horrible tragedy, horrible fire. And I fear sometimes that we all do this. We jump on narratives right away. It's like, let's just have empathy for people that are, we don't want to be rooting for this so that we can have an I told you so moment or anything along those lines. And obviously, then you look at some of the issues like, why did this happen, right? Then you start to hold the people accountable. Maybe we're at that time where we start to look at that and the different reasons, whether, there's evidence that specifically the DEI was a culprit here. I don't know that you have that. You certainly have negligence, it appears. I'm not a fire guy, so maybe, an expert can say so. I know that many firemen have spoke out previously saying, like, all we need is one win and we're screwed. I'm like, if we knew that, we knew this 6 years ago, we know this now, like, why wasn't everything being done? Like, who pays more taxes than people in California? What are you paying for?
I completely agree. I think the issue here is, I would agree incompetence plays a much bigger role than diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes.
They didn't fill the reservoirs. They didn't build new reservoirs. And understaffing may have an issue. There may be DEI involved in understaffing to a degree, but the bigger picture is general mismanagement.
Yep.
In this regard, though, Jimmy Kimmel's going on like a major late night show, one of the most prominent in the country, and misrepresenting the criticism that we have, which is largely mismanagement, and then trying to make it look like not specifically me, but the people in this space and Donald Trump are angry that there's too many people who aren't white as firefighters. So largely, completely agree. I'd like to focus on how can we get relief? And so shout out to Mike Cernovich and Chef Andrew Gruel, who have been raising money, and Chef Gruel's been providing space and resources for people. And I'm not going to rag on the guy for crying over watching his home burn. Not at all. But I want to correct the record and say this is not our criticism. It is not that we're saying people are not white. That should be called out.
Yeah,
Did Kimmel lose his house?
No.
Okay.
I'm saying, like, this is his home. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure his favorite bagel shop doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And then that's fair to be upset about. These are if I know people who live in the Palisades, they don't live there anymore.
Yeah.
I've been to parties up there. Those parties will never happen again. That scares me. I have friends who live a few miles away from where these fires are, and I'm texting them, making sure they're alive. So I get it. I gotta say, the dude does cry a lot. You know what I mean? Like, as an aside.
Yep. He wants to make it just a typical Democrat wants to make it racial. No, our criticisms of them and their situations of mismanagement and getting everything wrong has nothing to do with who firefighters, what kind of race or firefighters you're hiring.
Well, it's
0%.
It's an inversion of the criticism. Our criticism is that they prioritized race when we shouldn't.
Yeah.
So Jimmy's attacking us, saying we prioritize race.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, I do think, though, like from what I saw, just perusing social media, the issue was mainly brought up, like when this was happening. I think a lot of maybe bad actors, if you will, were looking to score political points here. And they're like, how can we attack them in every way? How can we get Gavin? How can we get, the DEI and all this sort of stuff? There was, like, again, because I don't think there's direct evidence that, the fire chiefs there, the fact that they were women or people of color, like that led to it. I think, like you said, it's mismanagement as a whole. Like I'd be concerned if I lived there thinking, like, we know the number one threat to this area is wildfires. So why is not, like, literally everything being done and so many resources being spent on that rather than potentially spending it on DEI programs and other things like that?
It is years. This is not new. This is California. And feels like every couple of years when they have a big forest fire or they have a big fire, it's always blaming the same thing, climate change or any other kind of BS. Well, they don't manage their fires or manage their forest. They just let it go.
You can finish your thought.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say that they just let it be how it is and let it build up and let the brush build up and let it turn into a tinderbox.
So I'll give you this. I think from a hard fact perspective, to say we have definitive evidence of DEI causing problems could be argued. But have you seen this video?
Oh, yes.
Jesus.
I've seen this video.
This is the video of the DEI chief. This is the DEI chief saying outright,
is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire, which my response is he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
That's absurd.
That's the DEI
I can't believe
chief.
they released that.
Yeah, right?
But so let me just, that's the diversity chief for LAFD saying, you got yourself in the wrong place if I got to carry you out of a fire, instead of saying we will do everything in our power to save your life.
I mean, obviously, when it comes to DEI, I'm like about as anti as you can get. I think the whole concept is really, really stupid and backwards. If you read, I don't know if you're familiar with Coleman Hughes.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
The End of Race Politics, which I thought was a great book, which sort of, discussed that issue, at in great depth. So like I could be, I'm as anti-DEI as you can be. But again, like you said, there's no clear evidence that that's the reason for the fires in this case.
Right.
Yeah,
I think I like they should have prepared better for the fires. There does seem to be arson at play. There's more. Another video of a person getting arrested
just today.
But the fire likely started from New Year's Eve revelers. That's the leading theory right now. The embers burned for several days and then kicked back up. And there's been general mismanagement. So it's largely, I do think there's a political issue here. We don't need, it's not that it's a diversity issue. That plays a tiny role, I'd imagine. But let's go full DEI criticism by playing this clip.
Okay.
I'm being sassy. Here you go.
And so it's critically important that to the extent you can find anything that gives you an ability to be patient in this extremely dangerous and unprecedented crisis, that you do. And so it's
so that
You
of
guys
course
have Google Translate.
What is she talking about?
I mean, can you translate that into
I have
English?
zero idea what she's saying.
That was a lot of nothing.
That's why I will always give her credit for being the person who can use so many words to say so little. She literally just said, "Please be patient." That's it. But she had to use 30 words to do it.
Yeah, I didn't even get that. Like, I need to read it like 4 times and see the video. There's been, and you're right, I think she does and often she actually shoots herself in the foot because sometimes she'll actually have something that she's going to say, but it happens in minute 3. Yeah. In the first 2 minutes, nobody could follow because they're like, what are you talking about now? You're just repeating words. And then, then it's easy to sort of clip that and, you air that and, you without all the other, and it just sounds like gibberish.
Daniel, 6 more days. Less than 6 days, actually. I think it's like 5.5. So you excited?
Praise the Lord.
Well, listen, I mean, like I was talking to you before here, I became a U.S. citizen in 2016 specifically to vote for your best friend, Hillary Clinton.
We love her, don't we?
Yeah, right?
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
I did throw up when he said it. But
yeah, well, hey, I'm here for, pure transparency and authenticity, whatever the words are. So, that was my reasoning, right? And not a fan. My biggest fear was Trump was going to lead us to nuclear war. And what I saw in 4 years was quite the opposite happened. There were no wars. He buddied the wrong people according to the mainstream media. But in retrospect, I look at that from a strategic perspective and I think, is that a bad thing necessarily? That, the old adage of keep your enemies close, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. And what was the result of that? Sure, maybe people preyed on his ego and were trying to nice to get the best of him. But ultimately what that led to was, we had safety. And I think as a voter, if you're not prioritizing national security and avoiding nuclear war, all the other stuff seems silly in comparison. What are your taxes? All this other mumbo jumbo side topics. If we have nuclear war, none of it matters.
Less people died with Trump. Negotiating with Kim Jong-un or Russia or whatever, we had less death. There was a buildup and a fear of war with Russia and Ukraine under Obama. Trump gets in and everything starts settling down. Trump crushes ISIS. Trump loses to Biden. And we instantly get war, escalation, confident crisis.
Yep.
And foreign policy is one of my principal issues. And that's why certainly I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Trump or the people around him are perfect in any way, but certainly better than what we're going to get from Kamala Harris, Joe Biden.
Well, I think it's not really controversial to say that a large reason or a large portion of the reason why countries were so aggressive during the Biden administration is because of incompetence.
Yeah,
nobody felt like Biden was capable of actually following through on any threats. I mean, how many times did he say to Iran, "Don't," and that, as if that's some kind of deterrent? Well, clearly it wasn't. Whereas with Donald Trump, people are like, well, maybe he's crazy enough to do something.
Yeah, I think the perception of strength is often, even just as important as actual strength, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like you said, Trump says there'll be, the world's never seen before. He uses a lot of hyperbole. He says a lot of things. We're going to invade. We're going to take Greenland. We're going to take he says all these things. And to some degree, I think when you're dealing with these other dictators or world leaders, he seems to have he's like the dictator whisperer, if you will. He speaks the language. They get him, right? You have to be a little bit crazy to understand some of these people. And it appears as though through his tenure, he kept the bad actors at bay. And then when he was out of office, it appeared as though they saw that as an opportunity. So had Kamala won, my concern from those leaders would be well, why would they stop now?
Yeah. People in the West, in the U.S., Canada, and a lot of parts of Western Europe, they really do believe that the rest of the world is like the West. And I strongly disagree. Like the rest of the world doesn't respond to niceties and politeness and things like that. They think that it's a sign of weakness. And I think that's undeniable. And there's a lot more of the rest of the world than there is of the United States, Canada, and Western Europe.
Strength is one word for how they perceived Trump, but maybe mad, crazy might be another word.
More
Fine with me.
Right? Because Trump, and I'm not saying this to disparage Trump, these are Trump's words, that Putin and Xi feared he might actually nuke their capitals. Maybe only 5%, Trump said, but it was enough. So they back off. Hopefully we get this kind of Trump is a madman deterrence and war abates. I'm hearing that there's a ceasefire agreement looming with Israel and Hamas. That would be very good. We'll see. I'm largely interested in the next few days of how we're going to see him deal with immigration and the economy.
The deal on hand right now, though, is one they've had for a while now. It's the exact same deal they had at the beginning when the Biden administration and everyone said, don't do it. I'm at least on the show I was watching, Breaking Points. What's going to happen? The new deal, it was exactly what it was a couple months ago, a year ago, when Biden did not want to do anything. So it takes Trump to come in the office for him to say, Netanyahu. Yeah.
Well,
the deal.
That was a really great press conference where Trump said all the gates of hell will be unleashed unless the hostages are released. And I hope that they look at the TV and they say, "Oh crap."
Yeah, well, I think, I would look at it sort of a different way. I don't think that Trump was specifically playing hardball with Netanyahu. It was more a case of he's saying, we're going to support you fully to end this war now.
Yeah.
Like he's,
right.
Because I think there was a little bit of trepidation, with under the Biden administration, there were several, measures that they were trying to put on Netanyahu saying, don't go to Rafah, don't do this, don't do this. And, Trump, clearly of the two sides was far more, pro-Israel side in this war. So he's going to, make sure that whatever they need, they're going to get.
But we don't know if they're giving him the West Bank, if they're going to let the settlers move in. We don't know the details of the small, what Trump is going to give them. We don't know yet.
We'll see. I'm curious, though. You mentioned in 2016 you wanted to vote for Hillary.
Yes.
What was the moment for you where you were like, I can't vote for these people?
Okay, so the thing with Hillary was, and like her or not, I think she was the most knowledgeable person ever, like the most quote unquote prepared for understanding what goes on there, right? She's lived her whole life in that, in that avenue. For me, I think there was just in the last year or two, if you will, my values haven't changed really at the core, like a classic liberal. But I feel like both sides went sort of farther away from the middle. So the question in this election is like, who's closer to the middle? And I think generally who's closer to the middle, wins. And Trump's coalition that he put together with Elon Musk and RFK and Tulsi Gabbard, and Trump himself, they're all Democrats. They're all traditional. Like RFK said, I would have run as a Democrat. Tulsi ran as a Democrat. They kicked them out. They threw them to the, there was sort of this elitist attitude. And there is, I find because, I'm in touch with both sides, obviously, in the world that I live in. And I find there's a much more elitist attitude with those in the extreme progressive left that if you don't agree with them 100%, you are the enemy, And I don't find that, or I haven't found that with those I disagree with on the other side as much.
Yeah. And you're not deep entrenched in politics, I imagine.
Relatively so, you could say. I consider myself politically homeless at this point.
But are you someone who watches political podcasts every day, and that's
I'm pretty in tune with what's going on.
Have you always been like that?
Involved? I would say for the last I would say for the last.
I don't know how you get to Hillary Clinton if that's the case. You know what I mean?
Well, listen, I like Bill, right? And I thought I like Bill Clinton, and at the time, there a lot of the issues that are have been raised since 2016 didn't exist back then, right? There was we weren't really talking about DEI programs. There wasn't the idea that Internet in 2016 was talking about DEI programs.
Oh yeah.
I guess I didn't see it. Maybe because I was on Twitter, which was was in my bubble, which that didn't see those types of things.
And I don't mean this just disrespectfully, but maybe there's an age gap. I'm 38, so people in my age cohort were very heavily into video games, which we saw the beginning of this whole culture war with Gamergate. There was this big upswing at the end of the 2000s for all of these diversity terms. LexisNexis data shows that every news outlet just saw a massive spike in racism, white privilege, all of these things. And so the core issues for people my age at the time, they didn't care about Barack Obama, drone bombs, or anything like that. They were talking about why in a video game about World War I, the main character was a purple-haired woman with a missing hand. Like, what's going on in our world? And so when Donald Trump comes in and starts speaking crass and crude, I was in Janesville, Wisconsin, and I talked to a couple of young guys who were like 22, and I said, what's your key issue? And they said, political correctness. We're freaked out by what the Democrats have been doing, and Trump kind of just says it like it is.
Yeah, no, there's no question. I think like you bring up a really good point there. And for me, just sort of being introduced to quote unquote woke ideology, right? And the first experience I had with it, I was on ESPN, myself and Phil Hellmuth, we were doing the break desk, and I was just talking about a play, and I said, well, it's not like this guy sucks, right? The next day, I didn't think I said anything wrong. The next day, the execs at ESPN said, sorry, you can't use the term sucks. And I'm like, wait a minute. I said he doesn't suck, right? I guess the connotation is somehow that's homophobic in some way.
No way.
I mean, because,
is that what sucks
No, I get
means?
it. Yeah.
Well, that's where it comes from. The
Really?
real
I didn't
sucks
even
is
know
like,
that.
when it's like, oh, he sucks, something. Okay. So the next day I go in and there was a woman on set or whatever, and I was tired, whatever. So I just said something like, oh, you know what? We got a long day. I just got to man up. And I was told that that was insensitive and I was using gendered language and I didn't understand what she meant. You know, like I just said, man, I got to man up.
Yeah,
Because I'm, you know,
Sure.
And she felt that was gendered. So that was my first sort of introduction into it. And then I sort of saw that sort of avenue towards all these little microaggressions and really creating the divide, making it to the point where you walk around on eggshells with everything you say, you might say the wrong thing. And no tolerance at all. Like I asked this woman, I said, listen, the guy who's 75 years old, he lives in Texas. He says to the waitresses, hey, honey, can I get some more of that? Are you going to call him a sexist? You know, all these types of things.
Yes, they will.
And she's like, she said yes. And I was like, well, don't you think it's worthwhile to explain to him? He's like, I don't want to do the teaching. He has to do the work on his own. I was like, there's like, you know, you're making somebody evil for doing something that he's been doing 70 years of his life with no ill intent. And I think that's where they really missed the boat. What is his intention when he says, hey, honey, can you bring me another coffee? Was there anything demeaning about what he said? Maybe you could argue that it's the language we shouldn't use. I'm all for it. Let's talk about it, right? Let's have the conversation.
Have you ever told that ESPN story before? Is that like,
yeah.
Wow, I did not know that. First of all, I didn't even know that's the origin of the word sucks.
Yes, I didn't know that either until I was married for the first time.
I mean, on The Simpsons, there's that famous joke where Bart says, I didn't think it was possible, but this both blows and sucks at the same time.
Yeah, right.
And as a kid, I didn't. No, I just thought that blows.
But they were like it was almost like this weird face they made to me too. I was like I really was like I thought I did a good job on the break desk. I was proud of it, you know. And I was like, why not? I said he doesn't suck.
So wait, like you're commenting on a poker game?
Yeah. So what, you know, it was the World Series of Poker final table. Holy crap. And then, you know, while they're on break, we go and discuss the plays and stuff. So I was talking about a play and he said it's not like he sucks. And I thought, okay, maybe they don't want me to say that the players suck. You don't want to demean them. That's fine. But I said he doesn't suck, and they said, no, you just can't use the term suck. Yeah. And I just didn't understand why.
What year was it?
I think it was 2017, 18. I think it was like, it was before the peak, but for me, it was the early onset of sort of this ideology that, you know, I was always sort of anti-political correctness my whole life because I think it's silly. Yeah. I grew up in a multicultural world where we all made fun of each other. We told jokes about each other. Yep. You're not allowed to do today. Like if Phil Ivey, who's a friend of mine, and I are on a golf course, you know, and you heard the conversation, we'd both be canceled.
Oh, dude, right? I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I grew up much the same way with a bunch of my friends of all different racial backgrounds. And one of our friends referred to each and every one of us by our racial slur. And we all thought it was funny. Nobody was mad. Nobody was offended. Nobody was insulted.
It was bonding almost.
We were trying to be like George Carlin. We looked up to these liberal guys.
Yeah, we always found humor to be a way that we bond, you know, and it became such a faux pas. Like, you know, you think of Don Rickles era, which maybe was a little extreme, you know, with the stereotypes, if you will. But, you know, I've always felt like when we celebrate our difference and we laugh about them, we actually grow closer.
Yeah.
Then this idea, and this is where the DEI programs and this training and these trainings, which have proven to actually increase racist ideas. Right? When you constantly talk about this stuff and you introduce it to children who used to play with their friends who were black, brown, and whatever, and they're just their friends. But no, that's not just your friend. That's your black friend.
Yeah.
And that's different, right? So when you introduce that, you create these divides that didn't necessarily need to exist in the first place.
Let's wheel it back into the modern political space. We have this story from Yahoo. Biden announces one-time $770 payment for LA wildfire victims.
Everything's all better now.
Big money now, yeah. Case closed.
Well, this is from...
Problem solved.
Well, when the last tragedy happened, it was $700, so they've upped it. But during the campaign, 100%. I remember when she said that. When she said $700, I thought to myself, if I was the strategist here. I'd be like, say you're going to give them financial aid. Don't say $700 because it sounds offensive. Why does it sound offensive? Because it's offensive. People just lost everything. You're like, don't worry, we got you. Here's 700. Now it's 770. How many people look at that? And also, by the way, you don't just get the 700. You got to apply. We got to make sure that you're good for it, and not everyone did. So again, if I was the PR manager, I would have been like, don't say 700 because that's not a sexy number.
You're better off saying nothing. I mean,
770 isn't much more sexy. No.
There is a serious challenge, though. I mean, how would the government be able to compensate everybody what they'd actually need?
Well, here's the thing, like in California specifically, we don't have poker tournaments in California anymore, not big ones anymore because of the taxes. Nobody can win because the state tax is an extra 7 or 8%. So the question is, like, if I lived there, and I would be asking the question, why am I paying so much tax here? Like, what do I get extra that I wouldn't get in another state? What is that? Do I get safety? We have one national disaster that's prominent in this area. Do we have resources and money? Is that money going to that? Or what is the money going to, right? And that's where I would be upset.
We here don't do any business with California at all. The regulations, the laws are cumbersome, offensive. So, like, we've had people who want to work remote. Some people we have here who work remote for one reason or another. And, in Pennsylvania, it's totally fine. You're not that far away. You can drive when you need to. We can fly you in. Wisconsin, no big deal. California, sorry, can't help you. The taxes, the regulations. Like, we had one instance where I think we do zero business with California for this reason, and California still tried coming after us for some reason, like sending a letter to one of our other addresses, claiming about some, like, money owed for some reason. I just, like, laughed and threw it away. I'm like, yeah, nice try, dude. I view the state as regressive and oppressive. When we look at the wildfires right now, the point you bring up about where the tax money is going, clearly it's not being managed properly. But I believe California has the highest taxes in the country.
I believe so.
Yeah.
When I was in the car business, it was 8.25%, like back in 2006. Like that's huge.
New York City, I believe, is the highest taxed place to live.
The city, yeah, because you have city tax, state tax,
right.
And
okay.
But California, I think, is the highest income tax. So the question then for all you guys is, for everybody, I mean, like, rhetorically, what are they doing with all that money?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, I do know a lot of people that have left California, and they seem to be one of the, I think it was 5 years running, I saw a stat. They're one of the top 5 states that people are leaving. And they're going to Austin, Texas. They're coming to Las Vegas.
Yeah. And
Boise,
Southern California is friggin' awesome. Mm-hmm. Like, the weather, like last February, I was there. I'm in Lakewood, and it's beautiful. I'm walking around in shorts, and you look over to the mountains, and they're snow-capped. And I don't ski, but I know you can go and ski during the day and come home. And then if you want, you can go to the beach in the same day. It is awesome. And that's why the government has the ability to behave in such absolutely horrible ways. If it wasn't gorgeous and wonderful, you wouldn't have a government that treats its citizens like such garbage and as is so absolutely awful to the taxpayer.
I guess I go back to the $770 payment, and the question is, like,
it's not like half of a rent or a third of a rent for these people.
Should the federal government give everybody $10,000? Even $10,000 is not going to cover the loss of your entire life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know the number.
It's better than 770. Don't get me wrong.
Right. It just doesn't. This feels like not even a Band-Aid, but like the tip of a Band-Aid without any of the pad.
Yeah, this is like
the glue.
A month's worth of, like, not even a month, like 2 weeks of groceries.
Yeah.
If that. Good luck. You got nowhere to live. But
I mean, if any state would be the state that gives more, it should be California, because the people there are paying more to live there.
Well, it is Biden, right? So I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
The state is doing anything.
Good point. Federal.
I'll say this, man. I have no. How many people have been displaced? 200,000. Let me see if I can do some quick math and see how much we can get these guys. Like, we'll get them something good. Let's do this.
I mean, what do we just send, a couple billions or a couple hundred millions to Ukraine again? Like, I'd rather pay my taxes and give it to those nice folks who had their homes burned down.
We should be able. What? Is this math wrong?
175,000 people is what they've said have been displaced in LA.
So okay, let me do this. I think I got the numbers wrong, because ChatGPT's math basically says if we stopped funding Ukraine, we could give everybody $1 million who's been affected by the fires. So how much?
Oh, ChatGPT.
Let's get the hard numbers on this one. I think my numbers are right. I'm gonna go with the low end. Let's just go with the low end. Let's do this. Here's how much if we don't fund Ukraine, the federal government could give $380,000 to each individual evacuated over this disaster. That's not even the people who've lost their homes. There's been 12,000 structure collapses. So with 175,000 people evacuated, we say no money for war in Ukraine, $380K for the American citizens. What say you guys? How do you feel about it?
I love it. First should go to the folks of North Carolina. I mean, I want to take care of. I mean,
that's true.
I don't know priority wise.
All right, so Israel's money can go to.
Yes, there we go. There we go.
The people that have are still dealing with the stuff that happened in North Carolina. That was months and months and months ago. So they should get priority over the people in California, just because they've been dealing with the disaster longer. You know, get those people made whole as much as you can possibly, and then move on to California, because in California, it's not done happening.
And it's warm there. You find you live on the freaking streets, but in North Carolina, you're freezing. You're in the woods.
Yeah, like they were saying that today and tomorrow is like 100-mile-an-hour winds again. So I haven't looked at what's going on currently, but if the winds are that strong, they're not gonna be able to advance containment. It's going to be just a matter of trying to stay where it is. Never mind actually making progress.
Are we still at 10%?
I think it's between 14 and 70% contained.
Okay.
But with the winds kicking up, it's starting to spread again. And now there is another fire. We can throw this one on. The auto fire has burned 56 acres.
Not Ventura.
Yeah, out in Ventura. And it's crazy because I saw an early report that they contained it, but now it's looking like it's not contained at all. And Fox said 0%.
Why are they calling this the auto fire?
I don't know.
Probably maybe auto dealerships in that whole area, Oxnard, Ventura.
Oh, is that it?
Maybe because that's what my whole my 20s.
Looks like there's a bunch
was in car dealerships. So in that area.
Man, this stuff just keeps freaking me out because I didn't grow up in this area or anything like that. I only lived there for a couple of years, but for like industry wise, with skateboarding, especially in music, I know a lot, and TV, and I know a lot of people over here. So this is, we got a, I don't even know what's going on over here. A cluster of fires at a golf club. Let me pull this up. It's crazy. Like,
that's a lot of fire.
Well, some seem so. I mean, I've saw videos of like fires just being started.
Yeah, these arsonists.
Random, like, what is happening with that? Like that. What is that about?
Just today, Ghosts of Washington on Twitter showed one up.
Some people want to watch the world burn.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm wondering, like, what is the incentive? Is this like climate activists that want to prove climate change is real going, watch, I'll burn this whole place down?
I think there's
We're psychos.
There's a lot of homeless people, and mentally ill people is almost a circle Venn diagram. Like, there's so many people that have mental illness. You get a lot of people that have mental illness, and they're just like, well, I can do it too.
I would not be surprised if at least one of these guys or some element were far left progressive or far left extremists, because many of these people, their view of revolution is we have to destroy the system by any means necessary to start a new one. So when I watch a video of a guy, take a look at this video. This guy is literally starting a tree on fire. Why did he do that?
What?
Why did he? That's crazy.
Yeah, this is the video. What's one of the videos I saw?
David Harris Jr. just posted this guy, for no reason,
The white dude
tried starting a massive fire, burning a tree. I think
people are angry, right? People are angry for a lot of different reasons, right? So sometimes people want to just literally burn it all down. Yeah. Well, there's already fires, so they get the opportunity to just be like, oh, no, it's fire, and they get to, like, a lot of angry, like you said, people that are mentally unstable, a lot of people that went through the whole period of isolation and the mental health issues. A lot of people suffered from that. The sort of divisive nature of the political climate, social media, like, people get radicalized, right?
Yeah.
And so if you radicalize whichever way, like, it's a hop, step, and a jump towards just burn it all down.
It's trendy now for these folks.
Well, when we heard the insurance companies pulled out of California and started canceling these policies, the first question we have is like, why would they do that?
That's a strategic decision based on information. Like, when insurance companies do this, they're like, okay, we make a lot of money doing this. Oh, no, we're not going to make any money. Why? What do you foresee coming, right? And there's people have predicted. What was it, 6 months before? Yeah. There was a fireman who said, like, it's as simple as, like, if we have a bad wind, it's going to all burn down. We can't do anything about it. We can't stop it. So like, you don't blame the firefighters themselves. They're literally risking their lives for it. They don't have the resources.
But what was the reaction from far leftists when the news broke about the insurance companies? They started posting a series of memes of people speed dialing Luigi Mangione.
Oh, geez.
Which,
of course,
is insane because in both cases, it's the government that's actually at fault. The reason that the insurance companies pulled out of California was because the government said that they couldn't raise the prices on insurance. So the insurance company said, we're going to lose our butt if something like what is happening now happens. And the reason they didn't raise the prices is because the government said you can't. And then when it comes to like the whole thing with Luigi, like the reason that health insurance is so expensive is because there's no market and because the government is involved in healthcare. Both of these issues are actually because of government manipulating the markets and not having an open market that can actually make decisions based on the realities on the ground, but yet they're blaming the corporations because they're idiots.
Or we can blame climate change. Let's pull up this clip. We got Timcast News citing the stream from Hassan, and he's talking with Bernie Sanders. I will just let them describe it, but basically, you're a moron if you don't believe the wildfires were the result of climate change.
The likes of DEI or whatever the new Republican thing is on any given basis is simply a misdirection away from the actual the actual reasons as to why anthropogenic climate change is accelerating these extreme weather events.
It makes me furious. It really does. Now, presumably what's going on in LA is all because you have a Democratic governor, a Democratic mayor, but then they're going to have to explain why we've had all this terrible flooding and other disasters in very red states all across this country. You got to be a moron not to understand that climate change does not give a damn whether you're a Democrat or a Republican. It is real.
They had record rainfall earlier this year.
Simply an attempt to deflate attention, much needed attention.
Can I just pause to point out there's a giant red fist in Bernie's office?
Yeah, he's a communist.
Yeah.
It's a straight up communist symbol.
Yeah. Right. That for people to understand, the red salute, the red fist, is akin to the Roman salute, which was used by the Nazis. For whatever reason, schools just don't demonize the communists the same way. This society, I mean, I know why we demonize Nazis. Yeah. I think we should also rightly demonize communists, but sure, whatever.
Why climate change is causing devastating problems in LA, throughout our country. My small state of Vermont, in the last number of years, has been hit time and again. Floods which have wreaked havoc for hundreds and hundreds of homeowners, small business people, our state capital.
I'm sorry, I got to stop him. Yeah, you know what these? You know what this is? These are guys standing on the side of the road holding a sign saying the end is nigh. Give me $10.
It's idiots.
Yeah, I think the thing about climate change, right? So the theory is that the climate's changing, right? When in history is the climate like never? Like, isn't that just normal? Like the climate does change. The question really is it stuff that we're doing, right? And I don't know that the science is. I think that there is some science that suggests, maybe we're playing a role, but like whether we play a role or not, the climate's always going to change. There'll be floods, there'll be winds, there'll be, all sorts of shifts.
You're exactly right. And I want to make a point that I continue to make regularly on the show. If there is man-made climate change, it is because of China and India, both of which have 1.5 billion people.
I think the point you make too, in addition to that, sorry to interrupt you, but is that, even if we did everything right, we recycled everything, we did everything in the U.S., it's irrelevant because if, large areas like China and India are burning coal or whatever the case may be, they're not. If they don't stop, then it's really useless. Yes. It doesn't do anything,
100%. And these both of those countries have a massive population of very, very poor people, right? Like even though they
don't have time or luxury to worry about that stuff.
Exactly. When you have people that are that poor, that are literally burning like animal waste, burning dung to heat their homes and stuff, you can't look at the American people who have made massive progress in clean energy and changing their lifestyles, and people change their light bulbs so they're not using incandescent anymore and they're using LEDs and all these small things that millions and millions and millions and millions of Americans have done on their own without the government saying you have to, on their own, to make changes because they do believe that it's important to at least contribute and help. You can't look at them and say, you people are idiots. You people are morons. It's absolutely counterproductive.
I can very easily logically debunk our good friend Bernie Sanders and Hassan over here. You see, the point they're trying to make is that it's not DEI or Democrat mayors or governors. Climate change is real. Now let's try some logic. Which political party has been telling us we must engage in mitigation practices to deal with climate change?
Republicans.
Yeah, no, it wasn't Republicans. You lose minus 500 points. In fact, it is Democrats.
Yes.
Which state has a Democrat supermajority? Many,
California.
but California.
Yeah,
So the question then becomes, if Democrats know climate change is a problem, and Democrats have advocated for climate change mitigation, and then you have a Democrat governor and mayor, and they don't mitigate the problem they tell us is coming, is it the fault of those politicians? Yes. Thank you, Bernie. Have a nice day.
It's true.
And yeah, I think ultimately the idea of climate change, if it's dependent upon you and me making sure that we recycle, we're screwed. Like, no, really, like you cannot depend on how many billion people are on this earth to all do the right thing. And if it's dependent, it's like when you used to go on an airplane and they'd be like, oh, you got to turn your cell phone off or what? Like, you really think that my cell phone, if this is going to bring down the plane, we got bigger problems than that, right? Yeah. So I think like at a micro level, it's theater. You know, it's this idea that we're doing the little things to, you know, make a difference, but in reality, it makes very little. Like if you recycle plastic, like 99% of it doesn't get recycled anyway.
I think when you spend enough time at a poker table and you get angled so often, you just don't trust people anymore.
You learn to not trust, I guess.
When that guy accidentally throws in 100, goes, oh no, I meant to do 20. Oh geez, look at me. You're like, these people are not gentlemen. You cannot trust them.
Yeah.
And you got to be a moron like Bernie Sanders and Hassan Piker to conflate DEI with the response and the preparedness and the response to what is going to happen in the state.
Yeah, DEI
has nothing to do.
Good.
I'm done.
Well, DEI is a great excuse, and it's a buzzword nowadays, but it really is just incompetence. You know, the people that are put in positions that were supposed to, you know, they were supposed to do.
I don't think it matters who you had there because they didn't have the resources. Like, I don't think that anyone in that fire department was like not going to do their absolute best, whatever that is. And it wasn't the personnel or the people themselves. It's the question of like, you know, why aren't they? And it's simple because there are other parts of the world that have similar climates to California, but they don't have these problems.
Well, I mean,
and part of the problems you sort of touched on it earlier was just like really taking care of the forest.
Yeah,
like,
I guess apparently there's a boatload of eucalyptus growing everywhere, and it takes a long time for that. I've heard that meme. I don't know if it's actually true, but the story goes that there's a boatload of eucalyptus, and it takes a long time to mature, and 100 years to mature, and the oils that it secretes is super flammable, and so you've got California full of eucalyptus with this oil that secretes, and they don't clean up the forest floor. So like literally everything that could go wrong.
Trump got laughed at for saying that
a
while back.
Of course.
In a lot of things he says he gets from experts and they make sense to him, so then he just sort of regurgitates it in his own way, right? And maybe simplifies it in the sense of saying like, shouldn't they just clean up the forest? And people laughed like, haha, yeah, I'm sure it's as simple as brewing up, but like, he's right.
Yeah.
Like this is really one way to mitigate like the damage done is by not having like the area be a powder cake.
We've done it here. We've done it at properties in this.
We have to rake.
Yes,
you have to rake.
Yeah, by law. Like those are laws that you have to be compliant. Right.
I got to pull up this story for you, Daniel. Delays and a lack of resources. They say this was reported yesterday. New York Post. LA firefighters took 45 minutes to respond to the Palisades blaze, and by that point, it was too late.
Yeah.
Why so long?
I don't know. 45 minutes is a very long time.
Yeah, that's.
I mean,
it's rough to hear.
I'm sorry, like guys, 45 minutes is a long time. If a report came in that a wildfire started, dispatch the chopper, I guess.
Everything.
Well, to be fair, on the chopper point, it was too windy to do so, but. Taking 40 minutes to respond, I'm like...
And you're in Cali? And
I'm not ragging on the firefighters. I'm ragging on whatever their resources were, or the management, or whatever the issue was. They were unable.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, nothing to do with the firefighters. God bless them. They're doing their job the best they can. It's their management and their leaders who are...
Well, the firefighters, many of them say, it's like, we had no chance.
Right?
Yeah. We were like, when Mother Nature just owned us. There was nothing we could do. And I believe that but I believe that's part and parcel because they weren't prepared. So why weren't they prepared? is the key question.
Yes.
I have a friend that used to do, I forget what the name of the job is, but he's a firefighter that would jump out of airplanes to go and fight like wildfires, like way off in the woods and stuff. And he was saying, look, man, if those winds are going to kick up like this, 100 miles an hour, even God isn't putting that fire out. He's like, there's not, like, because I said to him, I was like, yo, bro, you need to get down to LA. And he's like, man, even if I went down there, there's nothing that can be done. He's like, the wind is just too much. Even, you're not putting these fires out.
People,
Smoke jumper, by the way.
smoke jumper, that's what it is.
Yeah.
I always forget
Also, like, what about homes? Like, I mean, these homes that all burn down, like, if you use concrete, they don't burn down, right?
I
mean,
don't
if you live in an area like that, you maybe have to say, like, okay, if you want to live in this area, you must build this type of home.
There was a video of metal on fire in the wildfires, and it was metal frame burning, and I was just like, I think maybe when it gets too hot, a lot more burns than you realize. But honestly, I don't know that I know enough to answer definitively whether or not, because what I will say is I've seen seemingly metal skyscrapers on fire, and I obviously, if you build the house out of wood, it's gonna burn, if it ends up happening. But I do think that a lot of materials we use, be it insulation or otherwise, things we have to use, carpeting and other things, are gonna catch on fire.
Have you seen what they do in Japan? Okay, this is crazy. But in Japan, on their roofs, built into the houses, they have this thing where if a fire happens, the roof opens up and sprinklers just fire off.
What?
And they like protect all the homes, stuff like that.
Japan's the
Japan
coolest
does
place
it-
on earth, man.
Japan just does it well.
Japan is so great.
I've have babies, but they're doing all right.
I've been to Japan a bunch of times. I love it,
We
man.
live in an
So
age of
cool.
like technology where we have cars that drive itself.
Yeah.
We have all these types of things. Like, how are we so far behind on issues that are
Oh,
towards
bro,
safety?
no! I
seen the
pulled the video up.
I told you.
Look at this
It's
video.
unbelievable.
Check this out, guys.
Yeah.
Is that what you saw?
Yeah. This is what I saw. Look at this.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, they're like little sheds
They have their
outside.
own-
Yeah.
Okay.
You could
So-
do this to your pool or whatever.
It's little fire suppression sheds. Like, is it right?
That's so cool.
I mean, we
That's
have
preparation.
Yeah.
Right
You know what I was thinking about?
Japan was like, I remember World War II. That's not happening again.
I saw a picture of a pool.
Yeah.
Everything's burned around it, and I'm like, what if you, of your own volition, built a PVC pipe that went up and ran, not attached, don't need a permit, ran along the roof of your building with sprinklers, and then you can run the pipe right into your pool and
They
turn the
have
pump
something like this. Yeah, there are people. I mean, if you look this one up, I'm pretty sure people were talking about getting one of those pumps that connect to your pool, because you literally have whatever it is, 50, 60 gallons of water you could use immediately. It's right
like
there.
5,000 or something.
Whatever it is. I don't know. I'm really bad with numbers when it comes to that.
I will say
Well,
that
you guys use metric up there.
Yeah, it's true. So what's a gallon?
in California, I'm not so sure what they would do if that would even be legal, because if you catch rainwater and you put it into a tank, they'll throw you in jail over that.
Yes, but my point is,
Yes.
That can't be real.
No, 100%.
yeah, catching rainwater is illegal in a lot of urban places.
Yeah.
Illegal. Why?
Well,
Because you're taking away from the water that goes back into the water table.
yeah, there are other more technical reasons, because I remember we had this issue with in Jersey. I was talking to someone about it, and they said it's not just that you're taking the water away. It's something else. It's something like the combined retention of water by a certain amount of people can actually create a catastrophic like release of water or something like that. So it's basically, they're like, no one cares about one person doing it. They care if literally everybody retained, 3,000 gallons of water all at once or something. But I'm saying build a PVC system that's just literally pipes you don't attach, you never do anything with. You've never taken any action. If a wildfire starts, you just attach the pipes and turn the sprinklers on above your house to try and prevent the fire.
This is the type of stuff that if like I'm the government and I know the highest risk of safety, and like you said, it happened 6 years ago, then this is what I'm going to spend all my resources on, is to make sure all these homes have that or have some sort of access to water in a case of emergency like this, because this is going to happen again, right? So what are we going to do for the next one? We should have been thinking about that after the last one.
This is actually a crazy thing when you think about it. I mean, all of these houses had plumbing. All of these houses had access to water. And I'm just like, what if you decentralized firefighting and every house had just like 3 sprinklers on their roofs that the fire, like when the fire breaks, every house just sprays itself with a little bit of water. That stops the flow in key areas and the fire doesn't burn other areas. The amount of water you'd need is minimal.
Yeah, there's people a lot smarter than all of us in this room that can probably figure out technology that would make a huge difference. Like I said, I mean, we have self-driving cars now. Like, how do we not have a better way to protect us from the most basic element, which is fire?
And self-driving cars are common now.
Yeah.
Like Tesla's like one of the highest number. Like they sell more
I don't think
cars.
a Cybertruck would burn.
No.
Yeah, nah.
Stainless steel.
You're safe in there.
Yeah, it's good for bombs and explosions.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's time. Let's talk about this story from Reuters.
Nice.
Trump says he will create the External Revenue Service to collect revenue from foreign sources. Now, I'm torn on this because I like the idea of America getting paid what is due, but he's creating another IRS. I don't know if I want to be
This
in that.
seems like a troll to me.
Right? I
Like,
don't
this is
disagree.
just like, this is funny. Like, how do you have any jurisdiction over other countries? Obviously, you know, you have tariffs and all these things, but you're like, you're going to go after other countries and say you owe us tax money?
Well, I mean, I guess it wouldn't be the same as the IRS. Like, you don't dispatch guys with guns, although the U.S. does that,
That's what we have.
right?
Yeah.
I think it's, if the Internal Revenue Service what it would do realistically, keep records and logs of debts and then use that as leverage in trade.
Can they make
Trudeau's
sure,
buying U.S. submarines now because of the trade deficit.
can they make sure that they pay their fair share? I mean, I hate that word fair share. Apologies. For like NATO and all these other
That's
things.
the plan.
Right.
Tariffs and trade deals and things like this. I like the tariffs. I do. I'm curious your thoughts, though. The whole tariff situation with Trump and
I think tariffs are a weapon you can use to level the playing field. It's just a negotiating tactic, if you will, essentially what it comes down to. In some cases, tariffs can hurt both you and the people that you've applied tariffs to, obviously.
Right.
In other cases, it can be enough to go, okay, I hear you, right? So I think a lot of what he does is a little bit blowhard, like he throws things out there, talks a big game, likes to get you riled up, you know, and he does. Like, this is something that gets people riled up. The whole Canada thing, like, do we really think he's trying to make Canada the 51st state? Or was he just mocking Trudeau, right? He's mocking Trudeau.
insulting the guy.
Like, Elon's tweet kills me when he says, Trudeau said that'll never happen. He goes, girl, you ain't even governor of Canada anymore. Like, I think that he says a lot of things that he knows will, he's a master at one thing, right? Controlling the narrative.
Yeah.
You know, that's one thing I noticed over whatever the 8-10 years is whatever he says on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, that's what the narrative becomes. So if there's something bad for him, he says something crazy. And they'll just talk about that for 3-4 days. And then you have all these things. So when you ask somebody, you know, why do you hate Trump? They get to the point where like they don't know where to start because they forgot the 17 other things that were in the news the other day.
It's a really good point because Trump creates stories that are flashes in the pan.
Yeah.
So someone might say to themselves, Trump wants to create another tax revenue generation department. The IRS was bad enough. This guy's nuts. It never happens. The story vanishes.
Exactly right.
And then 6 months later, like, I don't like the guy. Why? I don't know. Why? Because there is no external revenue service. It never happened.
Because you sensationalize every tweet. Like CNN's entire program was like, I remember it was like Don Lemon every single night. And the whole show was Trump tweeted this. Can you believe it? I'm like, yes. He tweets this stuff all the time. Why is this news to you? This is not that big a deal, but you allow it to be. And like you said, you know, he can just change the narrative whenever he wants because they bite and they profit from it too. Like they want him to, you know, they make a lot of money because people tune in to hear them rag on Trump. I think less so now than ever because of, you know, the evolution of media and legacy media sort of fading.
Yeah. So, in our first segment, we were talking about Jimmy Kimmel. I actually checked. What do you guys think Jimmy Kimmel's ratings are in the key demo?
Oh, he's got
I
it
imagine
terrible.
they're bad.
You give me a number.
As in thousands, I'm going to go 84,000
What do you think? Key demographic ratings for Jimmy Kimmel, this big show.
per day. 84.
Like
Yeah.
240,000?
Ooh.
I think it's probably around 200,000.
It is 221,000.
Okay.
Pretty good guess.
We get better. We get better ratings than Jimmy Kimmel does.
Yeah.
That's crazy to me. But yeah, legacy media is dead. And largely why these things don't faze people anymore is because people are watching shows like this, which we understand humor. If Trump makes a joke, we don't scream Trump seriously wants to kick dogs. We're like, oh, he was making reference to SNL. You know, we don't take it so seriously.
Or if Biden or someone on their team says something, you know, that's supposed to be funny, we're not going to cry about it off, you know, whine about it right off the bat.
I'd say the thing that upset me, that woke me up, if you will, and upset me the most is you have plenty of stuff that you could criticize Trump for. You got a laundry list of stuff throughout his history, you know, in real estate and all these types of things. Why do you spend so much time twisting something that isn't true, make it look true to make him look bad? Like, for me, I was a believer that he said Nazis are fine people. Okay. And I believe that for a very long time. I'm embarrassed to say so. Then someone says, did you watch the video? I said, yeah. No, the whole video. Oh, I never saw the whole video. It was never on my, my news channels. Then I watched it and he said, wait a minute. Literally after he says that, he says, I'm not talking about white supremacists or neo-Nazis. And I'm like, well, what else has he done? Then the bloodbath thing. He's talking about the auto industry, clearly a financial term, bloodbath. And they twist that into saying that, there's going to be civil unrest. So like when you do that, you lose people like me in trusting your narratives and what you say. When you say that, well, when Trump's assassination attempt, on CNN it says Trump fell at a rally. Like as though he's old age, he just fell as it's like, why? I mean, again, I get why they do it. Clickbait titles work. And this is sort of the industry.
Do you really think that I feel like maybe there are some people that do it for clickbait, but I really, really feel that there are people that want to do everything they can to discredit him because they just hate him with such a
there's a combination of both for sure. Twisting the narrative does with clickbait titles works because more people see it, but you're also painting him.
Yeah,
they painted a picture that, like I said, I for many years believed that he said that about neo-Nazis.
They're with you.
Yeah, I did not know that until I actually watched the video. And there's a lot of things I think with Elon taking over X and sort of opening that up with the algorithm and community notes. Now, when somebody puts something out that's untrue, maybe not right away, you don't see it, but you see it soon enough where you're like, oh, okay, because I've seen things on X sometimes where I'm like, this can't be real, is it? And then the next day I see the same thing and it's got a community note saying it isn't.
When you finally watched that video, how soon did you find yourself an encounter with another believer that you were trying to convince?
Well, I remember showing it to my wife, right? Because she'd never seen it either. And, she's obviously, been a liberal-minded person her whole life. And when she saw it, at first, it's like you have to listen to it twice because you're like, wait a minute, no. Did they really? Did every single media outlet for all these years and continued this? I was very disappointed, frankly, when Obama on the campaign trail was repeating that same finding. Yeah. I was so disappointed. I thought, like, man, I think at that point he's like, we've lost, we're going to lose, so I'm going to throw everything at the kitchen sink to try to win this.
That's a really common thing that I hear from people that are former progressives or whatever you want to say. There's this guy on this podcast called the All In Podcast.
I know them. Yeah. I know all these guys.
Chamath said the same thing, and he was like, he's like, I couldn't believe that Barack Obama was repeating this absolute bald-faced lie, and it's true. It is rather shocking to that something that is such a blatant, just above the board lie, was repeated and repeated as if it was true. Even the current, even the old man, Joe Biden, said, well, the reason that I ran was because Donald Trump said this. It's like he didn't even say that.
Well, for so many years, the credibility went unchecked, right? If the news said this is what it is. There was no way to find out whether or not that was true or not. You just got what you were told. But now, obviously, with the resources we have and platforms like yours and others who can dissect and question everything, in an authentic way. And again, sometimes you're going to get stuff wrong, right? But at least you're having the conversation. You're not just assuming that, well, they can't twist the way that they did before. And I think there's sort of an anger from legacy media about the idea that their grasp and their hold on the narrative has slipped away.
I mean, that goes back to the Jimmy Kimmel thing in the beginning where the criticism of California's largely failed policy and policy that contributed to it understaffing, of which diversity, equity, inclusion things played a role. And then Jimmy Kimmel plays the game of the firefighters aren't white enough. That's always been you're racist and you're far right instead of actually addressing the concerns, which is a weird position for so many people like you saying you're a liberal-minded guy, but they're going to call you far right.
Oh, I get both. I finally realized I was in the right place when I start getting called both a libtard and a far right-wing extremist. How can I be both? But I'm like, oh, you know what? If I'm both, then I'm exactly where I want to be because I don't believe it's as simple as left and right. I kind of hate the terms. I think it's stupid because how many people actually agree if you agree wholeheartedly with everything on the left or everything on the right, you're not doing any critical thinking of your own. It's impossible. It is not possible to think that whatever you're spoon-fed. Oh, where did it come from? A lab or did it come from whatever?
A bat.
Yeah, a bat. So whatever, if you believe 100% of each side, then you're not really doing any critical thinking. So there are some things on both sides that I agree with or disagree with.
But I do think there's tendencies. So, I'm a probably liberal-minded guy. We probably agree on a lot of things. And I find myself in the conservative camp, not because of my political positions, but because of what I think is true. So, for instance, Matt Taibbi does this great report on the Burisma scandal in Ukraine and Joe Biden. And I go, well, I trust Matt Taibbi. He's a great reporter. Just by agreeing with that story, you're conservative. I'm like, what?
This is what I've noticed. It's like I might share something, right, on X or whatever. I share something that is true. There's a video. You can watch the video. And the responses I get are, oh, my God, you're sharing something from that guy? I'm like, what's relevant about who? Okay? That's not what I do. I don't judge facts and truth based on who said them. Some people I might really despise would say something that is just true. So you just have to acknowledge that. But we live in a world now where that's how people dismiss you, right? They dismiss you. Oh, anything. You could say something like the sky is blue.
You're a Trumper now.
But like, oh, yeah, you said it. So, well, we have to just discredit it.
Absolutely. Let's jump to this from Fox News. Ladies and gentlemen.
Here we go.
Trump's House GOP allies unveil bill to authorize country's purchase. American economic and security interests will no longer take a backseat, says Rep. Andy Ogles, who is leading the bill. It's time to invade Greenland, and we will be greeted as liberators.
Invade with dollars, bringing American
so
bucks up.
I mean, the Canada one, no way. That's not happening.
The Canada one was just opposed, but like this one and the Panama Canal one are both legitimate arguments about not just national security, but because of these two strategic locations and the melting ice in the polar in the north, that matters. So like that's going to be a trade route, and the United States has been the global hegemon for the better part of 75 years. Some would argue longer. And the United States has made the whole world a safer place because of it. You don't want Russia or China owning or managing those trade routes. So China's
educate me on this. How does he plan? I mean, what is he suggesting here? Are we suggesting just a negotiation, a deal?
Yeah, well,
this is invasion. Right?
No. It's not going to be a military invasion. If I understand
negotiation.
If I understand correctly, there's only like 50,000 people up there, right? And the last time, like the U.S. got the U.S. Virgin Islands because of strategic location compared to the Panama Canal, the U.S. acquired the Virgin Islands from Denmark for $25 million in gold.
I see. So essentially, right? You would pay a government. Like who owns Greenland now?
Well, Greenland wants independence.
Yeah.
So they're in Denmark, right?
So they are technically their own nation, but they are under, like, I forgot how, Admiralty or some weird, like Denmark essentially controls their trade and foreign policy, but they are largely autonomous. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if they have a prime minister or whatever, but their leader was basically like, look, we are Greenlandic and we want to be independent from Denmark. Yes. Let's talk to Trump. They're basically saying, Donald Trump goes to them and says, I will give you nothing, but we will open up gas leases. We will open up construction for hotels. We will improve your airport. The amount of money you will generate in taxes and jobs will be estimated at $5 billion in year one. Then they're going to go, we got it.
Yeah.
People of Greenland will be rich.
So a win-win.
And and it doesn't actually have to be a United States territory. It just has to have the U.S. just has to have actual influence over it. We already have a military base there.
And it might be as simple as Trump is saying he wants Greenland, but what he ends up getting is expanded military access and oil leases.
Yep.
And then that's it. There's no actual territorial anything.
I mean, when the UK and Western Europe become super authoritarian and woke in the year 2050, we might need Greenland to have a base there to stop them from invading us.
Well, there's already a base there.
No, I know. I'm just saying, like, it's good to have a base there, but like, the Western Europe, I'm just saying, I'm talking Ian style. Yeah, Western Europe's, watch out for them.
There is one reason Donald Trump wants Greenland. And do you guys know what that is?
He likes ice.
Why is it Greenland and Panama?
Well, because of the trade routes.
Shipping lanes.
Yeah, shipping lanes.
Greenland is control of the Northwest Passage, and Panama, of course, the canal. Otherwise, you got to go around, what is it, Cape Horn or what? I don't know.
All the way down to South America.
Yeah, holy moly.
So Trump is basically saying, we want to control the global shipping lanes in these areas, which will make us dominant on the world stage.
Would you guys rather Greenland or Panama? Easy answer.
Panama.
I feel like,
it's like play Monopoly.
Because of
Russia.
Greenland.
Because of Russia, I think it is. I think Greenland is probably the one because of Russia and China, because of proximity to Russia as well.
Oh.
Panama gives us the canal.
Yeah.
Very, very powerful. But Greenland gives us the upcoming Northwest Passage as well as the oil and gas leases.
Yep.
And
Got to think about the future.
I just like the cold north. So like vacationing in Nook sounds really fun. You know, those photos.
Want to wear a big jacket.
I went to Barrow, Alaska. Yeah. They renamed it to Utqiagvik.
What?
Yeah, Barrow, Alaska is the northernmost city.
And they named it what?
Utqiagvik.
Utqiagvik. Okay, cool.
Yeah, probably saying it wrong, but it's because while the city is largely like American white background, there are indigenous there. And I think they said something like 72 activists went to city council, changed the name. No one voted, no one else. So most people there were like, it's Barrow, but now it's legally Utqiagvik.
How does Alaska have activists? They need to get off the internet.
I don't know. I mean, good for them. They voted. Elections have consequences.
Yes, true.
You know, so
we need to get out more often. Let's go, team.
But there was this story. I don't know if let me see if I can figure out where I have this pulled up. Where they're, it's really funny actually. Here we go. Pete Hegseth confronted about seizing other countries.
It's so ridiculous.
That lady's terrible.
This is hilarious.
Maisie Hirano's garbage.
Yes, big time.
Our allies in recent weeks, refusing to rule out using military force to take over Greenland and the Panama Canal, and threatening to make Canada the 51st state. Would you carry out an order from President Trump to seize Greenland, a territory of our NATO ally Denmark, by force, or would you comply with an order to take over the Panama Canal?
Senator, I will emphasize that President Trump received 77 million votes to be the lawful commander-in-chief of this country.
We're not talking about the election. My question is, would you use our military to take over Greenland or an ally of Denmark?
Senator, one of the things that President Trump is so good at is never strategically tipping his hand. And so I would never in this public forum give one way or another direct what orders the president would give me in any context.
That sounds to me that you would contemplate carrying out such an order to basically invade Greenland.
These are not smart people.
These are gotcha. This happens both ways, right? The gotcha questions.
Yeah.
This is so much political theater. These things they drive me nuts because it's just full of baloney. You know what I mean? Like you see it on both sides when they do this. They're just literally trying to get him to say something that they have the soundbite on that he's like, and then the news articles are all like he wants to invade Greenland.
Yep, that's what they're going to do. And Pete Hegseth can't answer that question at all. He can't because the correct responses for anybody who's serving a commander-in-chief. I am legally required to abide by all lawful orders of the president.
Yeah. And
then they're going to go, aha, you admit it. You would invade Greenland. And it's like, I can't, well, he's a Secretary of Defense, right?
Yeah.
So he's not, I don't think that's a military role, but generally speaking, I serve at the pleasure of the commander-in-chief to act in any lawful way.
I think that's what he was getting to when she interrupted.
He was going to go there, yeah.
He was saying, 77 million people voted for Donald Trump to make the decisions, and if he gives me a decision to make, I'll make it.
Yeah.
But, she cut him off because she wanted the simple answers like, yep, I can't wait to get Greenland.
All these hearings are a bunch of BS. It's just, I don't know if they solve anything.
They don't.
It's political theater.
Waste of time.
I'm so over political theater.
Yeah, it's terrible.
The
TV ruined it.
Well, and also, a lot of these
TV killed
a
the
lot
radio
of these
star.
congressmen who want longevity because there are no term limits, they can be there for 20, 30 years. They want to make a name for themselves, right? So AOC wants her moment. She wants her fiery moment where she gets the guy, like, you can't handle the truth. She needs that moment to fuel, her name, her brand, all these types of things. This is what they all do. Like, how do they stay in power? By, elevating their names.
I think you've actually said something that would make me consider being in Congress.
What?
I would love to sit there and just like, how much time do I have to question the witness? You said 5 minutes. You, sir, want the truth, but you can't handle the truth. Now I would just start monologuing, making no sense whatsoever, but it would look really cool on camera. And then I would just be like, look at this dramatic, I'd edit music into it. I would waste everyone's time. That sounds truly fun. Then I would never get reelected again and everyone would be disappointed.
No, you might get reelected again. You're going to be like a Matt Gaetz style.
When you're going to come with gotcha questions, you got to come with like better ones than that. Like the one when Ted Cruz, I think it was, with the judge, and he just asked her the simple question: what is a woman?
Ketanji Brown Jackson.
Ketanji Brown Jackson.
I'm not a biologist.
He just said, like, what is
like,
a woman?
I'm not a biologist.
He knew that was, I cannot answer that question, which is like a pretty simple question, is what is the definition of a word? And there, like, his goal was obvious. Like, he knew what was going to happen. He's going to put her back up against the wall because she has to appease, like, a certain faction of progressive people who don't want her to say what's true. And, those are the ones that work, and they create those sort of short sound bites. This one, she couldn't even get it out well. Like, it took her forever to sort of get the sentence out.
Oh, but let's look at this one. This one's from The Wrap. Elizabeth Warren slams Pete Hegseth for refusing to meet with her about his record on women. And so in this back and forth, I don't really care about the win in combat for this context. Yeah. It's this video right here. This is where the conversation went. Listen to this.
In other words, you're quite sure that every general who serves should not go directly into the defense industry for 10 years. But you're not willing to make that same pledge?
I'm not a general, Senator.
You'll be the one, let us just be clear, in charge of the generals. In other words...
Oh, that was miserably embarrassing. I am not a general. But he's right. The argument being made by a lot of activists, I agree with this, is that, and I think Elon Musk and Vivek were talking about it, if you're a general, you should not be allowed to go and work in the private sector, military industrial companies for at least 10 years. So she's trying to play that up. He's like, but I'm not a general. And then everyone laughs at her. This is the degree of preparedness we can expect. They're not sending their best.
I don't think that it's not particularly controversial for your average American to be like, yeah, the Secretary of Defense shouldn't get out of the office of SecDef and then go right to Raytheon.
Seems like that is something that all Americans agree with.
Yeah,
I mean, I can't imagine the argument against it.
Yeah. Same thing, and it's the average American agrees in the banking industry too. You don't want whoever's running the Fed to go to the board of Goldman, or go to the board of Wells Fargo or whatever. Wells Fargo might not even have a board, but either way, point being, Citibank, whatever. You don't want to have people in an industry that is supposed to be regulating. Or you don't want people in government that is supposed to be regulating an industry going into that industry when they get out of their job.
Yeah, nobody likes the fact that our politicians are beholden to who pays their bills. Like, one example I can give you: when I was in California, we were trying to pass a legislation for online poker there, and I met with we had this little party, met with all these Republicans, right? And to a man, this is when Sheldon Adelson was still alive, and he was super anti-online poker, didn't want anything to do with it.
Why?
Because he didn't have an in on it. He was behind the times, right? So he basically was paying all he was spending a lot of money with these politicians, and they came up to me, and frankly, to a man, they all said, "Listen, we'd love to do it, but Sheldon flat out said, if I say yes on this bill, I'm cut off." Yeah. Wow. Well, that's just how it works, and that's, nobody likes that. It happens all over, but a lot of these guys, they literally, their whole job in Congress is raising money. They spend 40 hours a week raising money for their next election.
But it is worth noting that the industries that the agencies that are assigned to regulate industries, the people that are the regulators have to understand the industry too. So you end up with this circular situation where the people that are regulating have to know the industry well enough to make intelligent and comprehensive regulations if it's going to be regulated, but you also don't want them to get out of the business of government, get out of the bureaucracy, and then be like, well, the only thing I know how to do is the business that I was regulating. And it's also the business where I can get offered the most money. It becomes, the corruption is almost built in. And I think the actual answer is to limit what the government can actually regulate. But at the same time, it's at least worth talking about the fact that these things it's not as simple as just don't let regulators go into the business, or don't have people from that business be the regulators.
It's actually much simpler. I have the solution. It's that in Congress, we're going to do term limits.
Yes, I was going to say that.
eight years, but you just got to wait. You got to wait 8 years. Senate, 8 years. I don't like the 6-year term thing. Okay. Maybe the Senate gets a little bit long. I don't know. Maybe it's one term for a senator, 6 years.
Just not 50.
Not 50. And then once your terms are up to to the island.
wait, you gotta go to the island
Which
afterwards?
island?
It's
Greenland.
a large Greenland.
What if they did a good job?
And you can't leave ever again.
Who's going to do this job?
That's a not good question.
To save America, I would help. I would go to the island.
Do you really care about your community and want to represent and do right by this country? Because as soon as your terms are up, you go to a far-off community where you will never come back and you will never work for anybody. I'm kidding, by the way. I'm just saying we would all be satisfied with our politicians.
When you said term limits, I got excited because it's like so many of these politicians that I met, like they all literally said they're on the. That's all they do. They don't have time to look at actual issues to help the community because they gotta spend all their time and resources on raising money for their next election. Yeah. We keep spending all this money. Like I don't understand. I mean, I guess I do understand like how you spend $1 billion on a campaign. I guess if you're, paying Meg Stallion and
1.5
Beyonce to show up and what's that, 1 point, whatever it is,
Yeah, I'm just saying.
$1 billion. It's like all this money that the country needs and the people need. Like, why are you begging us to give you money to run campaigns? Yep. It's just so backwards.
Well, let me jump to this one. That we brought this up a moment ago. This is from the Wrap. Elizabeth Warren slams Hegseth for refusing to meet with her about his record on women. And ultimately, Hegseth had agreed he would support women in combat roles if confirmed, saying that so long as the standard remains high, he would be okay with it. So Elizabeth Warren basically is grandstanding, saying, you don't want women in combat. Now, why is she doing it? She's doing it to get a viral clip that her campaign can send out to a bunch of people and say, here's why you should give us money, because I yelled at Pete Hegseth.
Yeah.
Right. Did he at one point? He said he thought women should not be in combat.
One point he said it like 50 times.
Okay, so at 50 points he said that, and now he's reversed his decision to say that he'd be okay with it if they meet the standards that everyone else.
And the standards are high.
I totally disagree with that.
Yeah, I remember you were sort of saying this.
I think he disagrees with it too, but he's saying what he legally is required to say.
Fair enough. Women shouldn't be in combat roles because men look at women differently. Psychologically, men are going to defer to women. Human beings prefer women over men. That's just something that's built into us.
I can vouch for that.
Everybody is nicer to women than they are to men. That's just the way it is. I'm not saying that men are victims because of it. I'm just saying this is reality. And because of that, women are the magic creatures that make babies. And most of Western society, wealthy societies in particular, don't replace themselves. So no women in combat roles at all.
Yes, I'm going to disagree with that one, just simply on the basis of this. You put a protocol, this is what you need to do to be a Marine, right? If a woman gets through that, just the same one that every other man does, right? And she wants to be in a combat role and she can do the job and isn't a liability, I'm okay with that. The psychological aspects that you sort of touched on, I feel like, there could be something there, but at the same time, I feel like, in the military, there's like a brotherhood, right?
Yeah.
You're there to, for your guys. And, even if that were true, I don't think it's fair to say to women who want to do the job, you can't because some guys might be affected by it.
Life's not fair. I don't care. The fact of the matter, also there was a study done by the Marine Corps, and all male units perform better than integrated units. Yep. All across the board, they perform better in every aspect than integrated units. First of all, and second of all, I forget what my second point was but at the end of the day, I think that there's nothing wrong with having women in the military. There's a ton of jobs they can do. They just don't need to be in combat.
I think the issue with the combat is that once you agree women can and should be in combat, then women can and should be drafted. And I'm for it because take a look at this. Look how fat everybody is.
Oh, yes.
Women's average height is 5'4", and they weigh 170 pounds. I'm like,
insane.
Don't get me wrong. Guys are 5'8", and weigh 200 pounds. Y'all need basic training.
Yeah.
Bring them to camp, make them crawl around in the mud. They eat proper food and they work out and they got to do 50 push-ups because y'all are fat.
One quick thing to the point. I was saying that you were saying not the baby makers. You were talking about standards. It's also been shown that when standards are high and women continue to not meet the standards, the upper NCOs and brass start looking at the people that are actually training them and saying, "What's wrong? Why are no women meeting the standards?" And they end up lowering the standards.
Yeah, that should never happen.
That's part of human psychology.
That's essentially what DEI does, right? The whole concept of it is the only way to, the equation is simple, right? Let's say you want to get the 100 best doctors, right? And 5 of them are people of color, okay? Well, you want to get it to 20. Well, how do you do that, right? Well, you have to you have to look deeper into the list to get there. So what you essentially have done is you've not taken the top 100, you've taken, some of the top 150.
Of course, you skipped over.
You've skipped over other people who.
I got to say this, like, in all seriousness about women in combat, the stories I've heard from my friends who are veterans and have gone through basic training about how women are treated have nothing to do with the standards. So what I've heard is standards might be the same, but they're still not going to hold the women at an individual level to those standards.
10,000%.
I'm just going to ask Raymond,
yes, sir,
who actually is a veteran.
Yeah.
When you were in basic training, were there women?
Negative.
You had no women.
I was an infantry unit, and I'm sorry.
Oh, interesting.
Infantry. No women, zero. Back in the day, and my.
Do you know anybody who did basic with women?
No, I don't know any pogues.
Really?
Or anyone else, no.
So I want to defer to you first.
No, I don't, sir. No, yeah.
Because my story is just hearsay. I've spent time around a few different military bases. I briefly lived on one with family, very briefly. And what I ended up hearing, and I have family who are veterans. What I heard is that from a bunch of different guys, is that despite the fact the women were supposed to have the same standards, they would cry, and the guys, the commanding officers would say, just stop, just go, just leave.
So that can't happen, right? So here's the thing.
that can't be avoided.
So here's what I'm thinking, though. Like in a utopian world, right? I think it should be as simple as this.
Sure.
Here's the standard. If you qualify, you're in. Regardless of whether you're a man or woman, it should be that, right? If there are, steps being taken to sort of like make it easier for one sex or the other, and it risks the lives of the the other combatants and stuff like that, then obviously not.
But the issue is that it's granular.
Yeah, I don't think that you can avoid it either.
We also let fat people.
We're gonna say
people sometimes.
Everyone's got to do 100 push-ups, and what's going to happen is, in an individual level, the guy does 100, the woman does 70, complains, and the guy in charge goes, "It's fine."
See, that shouldn't happen. That's like
you can't avoid
How do you
that.
Stop that.
You
just
can't
tell the guy, no. You should do 100 or not.
But
you do 100.
The reality is that is human nature. Like I said earlier, human beings prefer women to men. That's just the way we are, and it's built into us because women make babies. That's part of DNA.
Real quick, I want to throw it to the super chat because I am not a veteran, so me telling a story based on hearsay about people's experience in basic training with women, I'm curious for you guys to chat or super chat your experiences in basic training.
Bring them in.
With women and men, and tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm wrong. I don't want to just give hearsay as fact, right?
Yeah, I never did women in boot camp.
It's anecdotal anyway, right?
Yeah.
People's experiences, their perception of the experience, it might not necessarily even be true, right? Like
Tim,
how much do we put into sort of limited data like that, right?
In the Slack, I put in the link to that to the piece where they say that integrated units perform worse than all male.
I read that.
Someone sent me a link to it. But anyway, so go ahead. Sorry for kidding.
No, that's all, guy.
But we helped out. Like officers are terrible at what they do. They go to officer training school and they come into the Fleet Marine Force and they can't hump and they can't run and they can't hike, and we still let them, be in charge of us. Even though they're falling behind, and we got to help them out. Or we let fat bodies, it's with the stripe people. If you guys know what I'm talking about, if you're in the Marine Corps, you had stripes platoons. They would have to do another recourse over again to go through boot camp again. So we give standards. We let people go all the time. But I agree with you, Daniel. If we just said there's a limit, stop it, done, and if everyone listened to that, it'd be great.
I'm going to pause and just say, I want women in combat. I want Democrats to champion women in combat. And then I want Democrats to confirm that women will be forced to sign up for selective service, because it is the fastest way to get the entire female demographic in this country to vote Republican.
I mean, yeah, if we can, if we're going to do that, then, I love women. I don't want them to die. But if they want their rights, equal rights, man, got to do it.
Republicans are traditionalist, largely.
Yep.
And so there's many prominent conservatives and Republicans who are saying women don't fight. I don't care about standards. I don't care what you think. Women are not fighters. Yep. Men should be fighters. Democrats are saying women are equal and can fight if they want to. And so this is actually true. The push for women to sign up for the draft in the U.S. was Democrats, not Republicans. Republicans took moral issue with it. Democrats think it's a moral issue not to do it. And young women across the country lost their minds on TikTok, screaming, I am not doing this. I did not vote for this.
Yeah.
So ladies, come on down. Men in the Republican Party want to make sure that you can be comfortable, that you can live your beautiful life and never have to raise a weapon. And Democrats want you on the front lines.
And I think the sane position should be simply this: it's up to you. If you want to be in combat and you can handle the rigorous training and you're going to be a good asset, I'm all for it. But again, obviously not at any lowering of any bars.
Yeah,
that's
what I love about.
But they tried that they tried that in the Rangers, and the Rangers weren't graduating women, and so they started looking at the Ranger units. Why aren't you graduating?
That's essentially what DEI is, right?
Yeah.
So when DEI gets involved, it's like, okay, well, how do we get?
I don't think we can have one without because of human psychology, we can't get one without the other.
No, why not?
Because of law.
Yeah.
So what ends up happening is
Fair.
The reason why Hegseth is saying he supports women in combat is that it is a 1964 Civil Rights Act legal requirement for him to do so. So what happens then is women will file a lawsuit saying the standards are discriminatory. You can see from the results, women aren't passing. If it's going to be gender neutral, it has to be a standard that applies to men and women, not just men.
That's all nonsense.
Yes. And that's what happens.
Yeah, that's all nonsense.
I agree.
That's the danger. That's the dangerous aspect of it, where it sounds in theory like a nice thing. Well, let's be inclusive. Let's be diverse. Let's do all that. Oh, okay, but yeah, when it comes to war, people's lives are on the line. Amen. So you want to make sure that everybody there got in the same way and passed the same tests and are equally qualified. And again, I don't care if they're male or female. It's irrelevant to me as long as they can do the job. But any sort of, manipulating the standards in order to get this exact demographic you want is literally putting people's lives at risk.
Every time you make standards that one group consistently misses, there will be people that will make accommodations so that way that group passes. That was what happened. That's what happened with George Bush's No Child Left Behind. No Child Left Behind was instituted, and because people weren't graduating, teachers just started saying, "Okay, push them on through," and now like 30% of graduating students can't read at all.
Well, I'd say there's a loud pushback though against the whole process. Like when you look at, say, for example, school admissions, right, with the Asian community, right? If you're an Asian male and you want to get into an Ivy League school, the road to get there is almost impossible in comparison to somebody, maybe a person of color or whatever, when the standards are different, right? So there's been a big pushback where they've changed rules and stuff like that.
But the results,
they can't do that anymore.
The results in the military are dead people.
Right.
Because you have to have
the
people.
Severity is more.
Yeah, it's far more dramatic than just Johnny down there doesn't read good. You know what I mean? It's like he graduates or whatever, and he doesn't read as well as other people that graduated. Well, they just kind of shoved him through to get him out the door. It sucks for him.
Then there should be some standardized rules in terms of like the bar. Yeah. And it's as simple as this: if you don't hit each and every one that's documented, you're not in. If you do, you're in.
That's what's supposed to happen with, like I said, that's what's supposed to happen with No Child Left Behind. They're supposed to be, the point of No Child Left Behind was educate all children. But because people are different and because all the kids have different aptitudes, which is totally ignored, they just start shoving people through. And that's right. Part of human beings. We are just people that are completely, we're all different and we all have different abilities, and you can't make the unable able. So what ends up happening is you start letting the unable go do the stuff that the able people are. And in a combat situation, that means more deaths, and it also means the United States losing more engagements. And if you lose too many engagements, you lose wars.
And if you can't read very well, you're allowed to join the military, the Marine Corps. If you can shoot rifles, if you can use the mortar rounds, you can shoot 50 cal. If you can drive a tank, that's great. We don't need you to read. We need you to be effective and a killer, and then you can get a free college when you're done.
Yeah, and again, I don't have a problem with women in the military, just combat. That's it.
Yes.
We're going to go to Super Chats. So if you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, share the show with everyone you know, become a member by going to timcast.com and clicking Join Us. Because if you believe in the work that we do and you want us to continue doing it, we rely on viewers like you. As a member, you get access to the Uncensored Show Monday through Thursday at 10 p.m. That will be coming up in about a half an hour. And as a member, you can call in, actually talk to us and our guests. It's a lot of fun. I'm going to start with two newer Super Chats because they're relevant to the conversation. Herbal Patriot says, yes, you're correct, Tim. When I was in BCT Army, 2003, it was disgusting, some of the women being passed, hauled by TRK during marches because they can't hold their own. We are too weak biologically. Another says, military here, Tim is right. Women are not held to the same standard, even in non-combat roles. They're a liability and also a new vector for strife and conflict. They're more likely to crack under pressure, break from the stress. What I've heard from a handful of different people who were in basic training was that women would cry. Yeah. They'd say, I can't do it. And there were legal requirements to give them showers and bathroom breaks because of hygiene issues women have that men don't. which no matter what you do, you can say 50 push-ups is 50 push-ups, and then they say, I have a hygiene issue, a man does not. And they're legally required to provide that relief. So where guys crawl through the mud and don't get a shower and wear the dirty clothes the next day, they can't do that for women because of potential infections and other things like that.
Yeah, and to bring up, like I said, I'm in a utopian world. Maybe I'm naive in terms of what's possible, because there is the added aspect of, like you said, like if you're at combat and a woman goes through a menstrual cycle, which they do, like every 30 days, their hormone imbalance could lead to like sort of being, if you've been around, like it affects you, hormonally and physically and all these types of things. So like if you're in Afghanistan, and you're in this military combat situation and you have a very bad menstrual cycle, like what then?
Here's another problem for you.
Yeah.
If a man is in the military, let me ask you guys.
Yes, sir.
Good sir. If you were in the military and your girlfriend got pregnant, what would your chain of command say to you?
If my girlfriend got pregnant, they'd be like, okay, cool. She's back at the rear. If I'm out in the field, then
no, like she's a civilian.
That's what I mean. Out in the rear. That means that's what I mean. The rear is back at home. I'm sorry, back at home. She's back at home, and I'm out in the.
Yeah, they don't care, right?
No, they don't give a F.
What would happen if a female infantry?
That's a difference. That's a huge difference. I mean, I don't know exactly. I'm not a female Marine or a service member, but
she can't fight.
It'd be
She's out of commission.
She cannot.
Now hold on.
She cannot.
That's a problem. That's sexual discrimination. If a man is having a child, they say congratulations. If he gets married, he gets a pay bump and he can live off base and housing.
Yeah.
But if a woman gets pregnant, all of a sudden she's a liability. Whoa! Now we got problems.
In the Air Force, she gets a new uniform apparently that fits her. The last couple of years ago, remember they gave out the uniform.
The issue, I suppose, is combat requires you to be in combat. Like if you're
combat requires you to be in combat. Yeah.
If you're a truck driver, a pregnant woman can drive a truck for a certain amount of time, and they can accommodate that. But there is still an issue that if a man wants to have a child, it's a congratulations, good luck. Yeah. If a woman does, it's a we're taking you out, you're out of commission.
Yep.
I mean, yeah, that's an argument to your case. Like I said, if a woman is simply not, physically unable to be at their best, the entire time, and they face challenges that us men were lucky not to, because it's
right.
I mean, I'm thankful that I don't have to go through it because I've seen it. I've seen women go through intense pain, and obviously everyone has varying degrees of menstrual cycles. Not that this podcast is about menstrual cycles, but it is it can be a real issue. So on that alone, you already look at male and female body type as a combatant. There is potentially liability with one and not the other.
And Pete brought that up also this is, I know, a small subject of what we're talking about, but transgender folks and other stuff like that, that if you're not capable to fight, they take you out. If you're having surgery, if you had a molar, your molar gets taken out, you can't fight, then you're no good to being in the United States military.
Mm-hmm. Let's read some more. We got Robert De La Cruz who says, screw Kimmel. Simple.
Amen.
No.
Al Gailey says, Tim, your problem isn't free trade. Each of the 50 states has free trade with the other 49, no tariffs. Free trade is fine. The problem is other markets are even less free and operate on slave labor and subsidies. Right. So I suppose your argument is once we conquer China and end Chinese slave labor practices and clean up their environment, we can do deals with them. If we can't do that, then we're competing at an unfair standard, and I'm not a fan.
Yep.
What have we here? Big Cheese says Minnesota judge declared State House District 54 for the DFL, who won by 14 votes. County election clerk admitted to throwing out 20 ballots. 7 of those ballots were for the Republican. Yikes.
There was 20 thrown out and 7 were Republican?
Yeah.
What were the
or
other
at least
13?
seven were confirmed to be.
And what were the other 13? Oh, they don't know?
Well, if this person doesn't, we should fact check that.
Yeah.
What are we looking up?
Because then they threw out more Democrat ones.
Well, if you're saying 20 were thrown out and 7 were Democrats and you're making that case, you're sort of making the opposite case.
The Clapper of Cheek says, this is insane. YouTube has been feeding me Negreanu poker videos for 2 weeks. I've been captured by the algorithm. Well, that's great because it means that this video was more likely to be recommended to you because you watch poker. All right. What is this? Horsehead says, Tim, based on your reaction to finding out Americans' average weight, what do you think about doing a deep dive into that as well as exploring long-term solutions? Thanks for covering the UK gangs also. I like to annoy Allison because she always gives me advice on health, and then I don't listen. And then later I'll watch a podcast that says what she told me to do, and I'll start doing it, and she gets so mad. And then no matter what it is, I'll always just say, Luke told me to do it. So it's like, I'm like, you know what? I got to start getting more sleep. And then she looks at me and she like, rolls her eyes. And I'm like, well, I was talking to Luke and he was saying sleep's really important.
Oh, I have to go. Like, for me, if I give my wife advice on what to do or something like that, there's no chance. But if Kim Kardashian says she takes this thing, I'm like, oh, well then, yeah, this is great.
AI is your friend.
Yeah.
Let's make an AI video.
I mean, I wasn't prepared for this. It was a joke beforehand, but in honor of Allison, we got Luke upside down in the background because he's in distress. So
is that why you put him upside down? He's in distress.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Kyle says, Daniel, what do you think about Matiso last week on OnlyFans saying that you've come around to his side? You were a little unhinged a couple of years ago. Still my goat.
So Mike Matiso, by the way, he asked me, when he heard I was coming on here, he's like a massive fan. He watches every one of your shows. He's like, I got to
get him out of here.
Yeah, he loves it. There's actually a documentary about his life. I figured I'd be okay to plug. It's on Amazon Prime. Yeah, it's called Matiso. It just released. And he's very, very open and, vulnerable about his position. So as to the claim that, Mike Matiso and I think we were never really that far apart. He just buys like every conspiracy theory without here's the thing about Mike, right? He would like post an article on X and go, see, I told you so, because you read the headline. But if you read the article, it says the exact opposite of what he thinks it says, right? So like you didn't read the article. So I still, I don't think we were that far apart necessarily. Like I said, I've always had traditional, old school, simple liberal values. Let people do what they want. You're gay, you want to get married? Absolutely.
But then the media started lying to everybody. And so what ends up happening is people with these same views that never changed believe things that aren't correct, like the Very Fine People hoax. Yes. And then when you realize, like, wait a minute, they lied, you're instantly right wing.
Well, yeah, anytime you point that out. Like, I remember, again, specifically the first time it happened, I was in the bubble and when COVID was happening, and if you were Democrat, you thought it came from a bat, and if you're Republican, it came from a lab. And
it did come from a lab.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. I thought about it, and I'm like, well, wait a minute. I don't know. Does anybody know? Nobody really knows. So why are you racist if you think it came from a lab, and you're like righteous if you think it came from a bat? It's just like, it was such an obvious example to me. Right. Of how tribal we are and how, depending where you got your news, this is what you must think.
But it is now, I believe, the principal belief among government is lab leak.
Almost assuredly. It seems like very, very likely, high percentage. Again, not 100%.
Sure.
But it seems very, very likely that the only COVID lab in China that happened to be in Wuhan is
a block away.
Yeah.
Or from 1,000 miles away.
Yeah. So the meme is, what's the difference between a conspiracy theory and the news?
What?
6 months.
No, just fair. Yeah.
All right, let's grab some more. Let's see.
China.
Ripper says, have you seen the satellite images? Shows 3 fires starting at the exact same time. Interesting. No, I didn't see it. There was a big wildfire in September, actually, in California. A bit north, I think.
Do you, real quick, do you think more every day there's someone new starting a fire down?
Yeah, there's a fire. Oh, yeah.
And watching Ghost just posted one before I came on the show. Like, are they gonna burn down LA area because everyone wants to start fires? I hope not.
Because resources are strained, crackpot criminals are feeling their free reign. It's terrifying. All right. Let's see. How do you pronounce that? Dedier says, just wanted a shout out for my birthday. Brandon Ellie, longtime listener, first time sending a super chat, just picked up a bag of Graphene Dream. Have a good night, y'all. Happy birthday, Brandon. Really appreciate you picking up some Graphene Dream. I'm sure Ian does as well.
Happy birthday, Brandon.
Happy birthday. Josh Berg says, how do you feel about some Americans downloading the TikTok alt Red Note and deleting Facebook, IG, and X to spite the U.S. government? Just how China doesn't allow Google. Should America ban all foreign entities or at least adversarial? I agree with the divestment, and I don't care what a few thousand people are doing downloading some app. I don't know. A lot of people are downloading. It's not going to happen. It never happens. What do you think about the TikTok ban?
Well, I mean, I think there is already precedent. There is a law on the books, right, where like foreign entities cannot own what we consider like media corporations in America, right, or a specific percentage of it, right?
I don't know.
There is a law in the books that you can't. But then the question begins.
They're adversaries. They got
right. The question about this bill or whatever that was being passed is like, I think it the question is like, how far reach does it have? Does it get to like, well, Elon's not born in America. Does that mean he has to give up, X or something along those lines? So it's a slippery slope. I've actually heard both sides of this argument. And my first instinct was like, this is a China propaganda machine, TikTok, right? They're allied with, our enemies, if you will. Yep. And they use this to poison the minds of our youth, right? And the brand of TikTok that they get in China is very different than the one we get here.
Dude,
so on the surface, I feel like, okay, well, yeah, maybe there should be something to be done about that. But then the question is, how do you do that while also protecting, other social media companies and others without giving government total overreach where they can just say at any point, well, we're going to shut you down because, for whatever reason.
They've already got total overreach. The constitutionality of banning TikTok isn't really in question. There's no constitutional precedent to give the government the authority to ban something like that, unless you say that it's for national security. I do believe that TikTok is a means for the Chinese Communist Party to influence and acquire information on Americans and things that the government's doing. Like if you're, say, the owner of Lockheed Martin or one of the people on the board of Lockheed Martin or someone with a top secret clearance at Lockheed or Raytheon or whatever, they have a kid and their kid has TikTok on their phone. There's no telling what they can access through the phone, because I don't know myself what they can access, but I mean, if my phone can start my car,
yeah, we're already plugged in.
I'm sure that some smart Chinese programmers could use any number of apps in the phone if they have access to the phone, and if TikTok does get access to the phone the way that we assume that it does, access to the microphone, access to the Bluetooth and stuff like that. I'm sure that there are all kinds of nefarious things they could be doing. Now, I don't have any problem with banning TikTok. I don't think that it's a free speech
banning
thing.
Is the right approach. I think selling to an American.
I don't have a problem with that either.
I agree.
Right, like if Elon buys it, for example, then
there's that's disputed now. We don't know if that was ever true, but I don't believe that foreign countries have free speech rights in America.
Yes.
So I don't see why.
Well, the UK certainly doesn't.
Yeah. So the argument on the free speech of TikTok is that we can't force divestment because it violates the free speech rights of ByteDance and the Chinese partners. And I'm like, why would Chinese nationals in China have free speech in America?
Yeah, they can suck a big one.
Yeah, the founding fathers were not intending. Like, I think if you go to an originalist argument in the Constitution, if you went to the founding fathers and said, should foreign countries, particularly adversarial ones, be allowed to leaflet in the United States, they'd say no.
Yeah.
That's
essentially a good analogy because it's essentially what it is. Yeah.
Right. We got this from Patricia Wright. She says, USAF wife here met active duty women who got pregnant on purpose to avoid their deployment cycle.
Oh, snap.
Of course.
I mean, it makes sense.
She said, whether married or not, sometimes by cheating.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Sometimes.
And everyone's pregnant by the time you get back from your deployment. Never mind, but
if you throw a combat, a combat element out into like forward operating bases, all the women are getting pregnant. Like, unless
How do you feel about this in combat, right? Because I was curious just about your take specifically. What if there was, like, say, for example, an all-woman unit? Would you be opposed to that?
Yes,
100%.
Because the psychological.
They're all women, right?
Well, okay. So that's not an all-women military, though. So
right,
this
you
all-women
battalions. You have different.
Yeah. So this all-women unit, right? So say it's a company, right? All-women company, right? They get into contact, and that all the surrounding elements are going to be like, we need to go get him. We need to go help him out. We need to go defend him.
It's not even that.
That's what I'm thinking.
You really want to send like a unit of female combat to go fight Taliban men?
I'm not suggesting you should. Ever. I was curious if it would.
I just mean rhetorically.
Yeah, of course, right.
No, they would be dead in a heartbeat. I mean, they can shoot fine and all that stuff, but
no, they're not going to be able to carry the same amount of ammo.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're not going to last.
It's really simple. When you look at grip strength, when you look at stamina endurance, it's something like, I think 1,000, or it's less. It's like 10,000 to 1. I actually don't think that any woman at the highest end reaches the highest end of men. So when we're talking about men in combat, you're already talking about the top microscopic percentile of men who are trained and active and able. Women don't reach that high. Mm-hmm. So when we talk about like, if a woman can pass the standard, there's a 6'3" woman who's ripped and is stronger than a 5'7" guy. True, but that 6'3" woman is still weaker than a 6'3" guy who is being chosen for
the 5'7" guy isn't in that role.
Exactly.
Right.
And I would like to change my answer. The American women combat force would not die instantly. We definitely they could probably take over France and some other probably Canada. They'd do okay in certain prospects. So shout them out.
No, I still think the biggest issue would be that combat element would be looked at by other combat elements.
Oh, we got to go save them.
We have to save them. Yeah. They're in contact. We need to send guys to help them out. We need to go protect them.
No, not if the other combat elements are incels. They're like, they deserve it.
It's hard enough to fill the ranks, But you're right. Then they'd be like, leave them. Let's go help the bad guys. Bitches.
Then we go protesting.
Right.
All right. Black Ops Elf says, never attribute to incompetence what is more likely attributable to malice. They've declared their purpose is to destroy us, and they've been good at this, but we have trouble processing it, so we default to saying they're incompetent. Don't underestimate.
Who's they?
He's talking about the government of California and Democrats.
Yeah.
It's hard to believe it's incompetence when they're like with de Blasio, for instance, in New York. He was saying he wanted to buy buildings for pennies on the dollar, and then COVID lockdown happens, and he's like, now we're going to do it. So it's like, my view is more that Democrats exploit crises with smiles on their faces, and they tell you they do it. Not that they create crises to then exploit.
Yeah,
that's a lot harder to do.
Have we heard anything on that? I mean, I haven't looked into it myself, but I wonder if he has like sideline buying stuff up over there in the city.
He's gone.
But he can still buy. He's a citizen. He can still.
Oh no, he's not doing anything.
You know what I mean?
Spidge B says, Daniel, Tim is too cocky about poker. School him.
Oh, I already know that. We talked before the show started, and you are lucky, right? You believe that. Okay, good. That's important. That's step one.
That was my joke. I was like, when I goof off and get lucky, and then talk about how good I am to the rest of the players. Yeah. That's to antagonize them.
Yeah. After the show, we're gonna take the camera out to the table.
Oh. Well,
I'm just kidding.
We got the poker at the boys' table, and very, very, very impressive.
I only brought 20,000. Is that enough?
No, I'm sure my poker stories are like, to compare it to the average person, when the kindergartner comes in with the grand drawing and being like, look what I did. I'm telling this guy a poker story, and I'm like, he's heard it.
Well, I'd say I love this saying because it's true, but like poker's a lot like sex in that everybody thinks they're good at it, but most people don't have a clue what they're doing. Like, have you ever met someone who says, hey, are you good in bed? And well, no, I'm terrible. Well, everyone thinks they're pretty good. Yeah. Same with poker.
Yeah. Fair. Yeah, and it's funny, especially because, playing at the local poker room, everybody wants to give you advice because they know better than you.
Oh, I get it. I get it from people who play 1-2, $2, $5, and they said, yeah, you should have folded that hand. I'm like, why?
They don't know who you are. Like, hey, buddy, let me give you some advice.
Yeah, it's whatever. You have to take it with
like people who know who you are would tell.
Oh, I get it all the time when I'm playing online, and sometimes I'm streaming on YouTube or whatever. My poker, you get people just randoms on the rail, but the difference is they can see the cards and they see what happens, so they can play like armchair quarterback. It's like watching sports. Don't you see that with sports? People watch sports and they say, what are you doing? Why don't you? They're telling like Josh Allen or whatever. It's like, you should have ran there. It's like, you don't think he knows better than you. Yeah. You think you know better than he does.
My favorite line that someone told me was, no one's ever wrong at the poker table. And so this guy was like, his advice, it's good advice. When the other guy makes a mistake, you tell them they did everything right. Yeah. That you did the right thing. Nothing you could have done there, buddy.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Hard luck.
Yep.
That's what I've been telling Mike Matasso for many, many years. Yep, you're just unlucky.
So if you're giving people advice, it's like, why would I listen to you? We're at a poker table. You're a liar.
Yeah. Well, the people that do that, it's like a mistake, especially if they're giving the correct advice.
Okay. They're giving the good advice.
Like, so let's say there's 5 of us playing poker, right? And you're terrible.
Sure,
right?
I am.
You're terrible. We're all going to beat you out of money. Wait, I don't want him telling you stuff while we're playing. About how to play better. Because then, you cost everybody else. So
that's happened to me because I don't care at 1-2. Like we were talking about, like if we're just goofing off. And so there was a guy playing miserably and he kept buying in. And I was telling him like,
but he play tighter.
Well, it's like 10-5, like if I'm betting here, here's what I'm doing. And they're like, shut up, man.
Yeah, let him.
Like this dude's dumping money on the table. And I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Let me dump the money on the table because I can, and I'm having fun with you guys, not the poor sucker who's losing everything and is really depressed right now.
That's very nice. That's a good way.
That's kind of where I wanted to get in poker, where the people that I play with, they can all afford to lose. You know,
Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable taking Grandma Betty's last $200 at the table, but like, you know, rich billionaire tech guy, and I'm like, I don't mind. You know?
With me, it's kind of like hot potato because I'll goof off and I'll bet and play like wild and loose, and then other people win. But then one person ends up losing that hot potato, and then they feel bad. Yeah. And then the guy's like, everybody else got paid but me.
They feel worse.
All right. Scuba Steve says, Google the fitness test for both Army and the Marines. They are different standards for men and women and age. Men have to perform higher.
Yes.
Well, that's not good then.
Right.
If that's the case, then I'd be opposed to that. Yeah.
They brought women into combat in 2016 through the Marine Corps, by the way, FYI.
Is he sure that statement is based on for combat specifically or just for military
I think it's general.
service?
Yeah, it's a general test.
Okay.
Are there female combat Marines?
There were 4 in our history. There might be some today. I don't know, but I know Maria Durham was the first one back in 2017, and then there were 3 others. But I don't know current situational stats.
It doesn't. So here's the issue: women have less skin collagen, less muscle density, less fast twitch muscle, less bone density, larger Q angles. Those are largely absolute, regardless of whether or not you're in the higher percentile of female.
Those are all facts you weren't allowed to say 3 years ago.
Yep.
It's true.
I mean, it's really
crazy.
true. You couldn't say that without being considered phobic.
So the Q angle is because of the hip ratio. The femurs come at an angle, which means women are prone to ankle and knee injuries much more than men. So there are still women with narrower hips and all those things, but they still are going to be more prone to those injuries. So it's and the lower center of gravity, harder to carry heavier weight, not likely to carry the same amount of ammunition. But if they do carry the same standard as men, they're going to burn their stamina much more quickly. There's a lot of complications. And this is just evolutionary biology. Men are expendable.
Yeah.
Women are not.
Yeah, but what is a man?
I don't even know.
Human male.
Let's just shout out Maria. I'm sorry, Miss Quam, Quam. Was the very first person infantry from the Marine Corps to pass through boot camp. So shout out.
All right.
She's labeled it.
Anthony Johnson says U.S. Army from 05 to 09. Basic training was in Fort Relax in Jackson. Training company had second floor for women, and I heard their troubles in the stairwell and watched how they had another few minutes to finish a 2-mile run.
Oh, another thing is women can't get along.
Another 2 minutes?
You put too many women together.
Okay, that's pushing it.
Okay, so tell me if this is fact check me right now. Like Google this.
Okay.
I think it's Japanese. I'm not sure, but in one of these Asian alphabets, the symbol for there's a symbol for woman. Actually, I'm sorry. There's a symbol for tree. And if you put it next to a symbol for tree, you get trees. And if you add a third tree symbol, it means forest. All right. If you take woman and you put it next to another woman, you get women. And if you put a third woman, you get argument.
Yeah.
No.
I'm not joking. I am not joking. I am not insulting with that. So fact check that because I think it's Japanese.
It's a lot to look up.
And it was a viral video where a Japanese woman, an American woman she was an American Japanese woman. She was from America, spoke English. And she was teaching people how to speak Japanese and read Japanese. I think it was Japanese. And then she shows this and it went viral because it was hilarious. So, I don't know. Fact check me.
Well, the kanji for woman, ona. I don't know how to put 3 of them together, though.
No, just Google search the story.
Yeah.
Chinese.
Dirty.
So in etymology, in the Chinese characters, the traditional character for woman is the character that means quarrel or dispute. Two women symbols next to each other makes argument. There you go.
What did you look up so fast to just find that instantly?
I Google searched woman means argument Chinese.
Oh, but you knew Chinese, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
So
I thought you said Japanese.
let me pull it up to fact check it. Oh, whoop! Just closed on accident. There we go.
Dirty knees.
So let's see. Where is it in here? What is this? This doesn't actually help. This doesn't explain anything to me.
On Chinese?
Yeah. It doesn't actually. Oh, okay. Duplication of woman. Oh, interesting. But it doesn't. Oh, there you go. Wow. There it is.
Quarrel.
1 symbol means woman. 2 means dispute.
That makes so much sense.
You know, well, I mean,
Just imagine the guy making the alphabet.
That's
I will
just-
say this.
it's just evidence of the patriarchy and the fact that men have always.
I will
women.
say this based on my own personal anecdotal evidence, but like, you know, America gets a bad rap as being this like really racist nation, where when I go to a lot of other places in the world, it's like sexism and racism is so much more prevalent and just accepted within the culture, and ageism and different things like that. Like, I went to Korea and we were going to go to a bar and they wouldn't let us in. And I was like, they said 86. I was like, what do you mean 86? It's like, you have to be born after 1986. There's a lot of different cultures that sort of like, it's far, like it pales in comparison to like the evolution and the growth we've had here in this country. You know, like obviously things are not perfect here.
Dude, the only reason we get a bad reputation is from Americans.
But
from other countries.
In Japanese kanji, 3 woman symbols means noisy.
To your point about like the U.S. basically had an entire summer of riots and tearing apart major cities because there's perceived racism and the United States is among the least racist countries on earth.
It's one of those things that's very difficult to sort of define. Like, how do you define who's more or less racist? Like, how do you define yourself? Who defines himself as a racist? It's a very difficult quantifiable thing. So you just look at like, you know, living standards. Like in America, you have a pretty diverse group of people that live in different, you know, financial, socioeconomic tiers, if you will, where that's not necessarily the case in a lot of other places, much like, you know, to the same degree that it is here.
Yeah.
So like by that alone, it would suggest that like, okay, listen, racism exists in a lot of different ways, both implicit, institutional, and all these things. But America's, I think, compare it from now to 1960, we're doing a lot better, and it's okay to like recognize that. I would think
we're doing better than most places.
We're only considered racist,
better than every other place
by the people who live here, the leftists who live here.
That's true.
The only people call us the most racist country in the world is by them, not no one else.
All right, everybody, we're going to go to that members show. So head over to timcast.com, click join us, become a member to support our work directly, and you can watch that uncensored show, join the Discord server, chat with like-minded people, and maybe even call in. Now, the reality is the people who already submitted questions are going to be calling in, so you're probably too late. But hey, sign up for next time. You can follow me on X and Instagram at Timcast, and don't forget to smash the like button. Daniel, do you want to shout anything out?
Oh, yeah, just, you know, the Mania Pod that me and my wife are doing. We do it every week, every Tuesday. It's just the two of us, and we talk about a lot of different topics, mental health related. My wife is bipolar, so she shares a lot about that. I think that, you know, a lot of people, you know, especially in this country, deal with that sort of stuff and, you know, might get a lot out of it.
Right on. Well, it's been fun having you. Member show will be fun.
All right. Guys, I'm Raymond G. Stanley Jr. You can follow me on X at Raymond G. Stanley Jr. and Raymond G. Stanley Jr. on internet, Raymond G. Stanley Jr. everywhere. Sir, I appreciate. I thought you were going to be poker fella, but you know so much more than I thought, and I appreciate the conversation today. Mr. Phil?
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains, and on January 31st, we have our 10th record going to be released. Go to Spotify right now and pre-save it. If you want to check out some songs, you can check out Forever Cold, Let You Go, No Tomorrow, or Divine. They're available on YouTube, Amazon Music, Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora, and Deezer. And don't forget the Left Lanes for Crime.
We will see you all over at timcast.com in about a minute. Thanks for hanging out.